Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is LoreCrimes. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back, people.
We have huge news for you, but Hal's news is much more important.
Oh, we were just talking about Colin's diarrhea, to be fair.
Dude. Well, now that we're live, let me tell you, there was one time it was so bad, dude.
Can it wait 1 second? We literally have
All
such
right,
an
sure.
important thing to say, which is, first of all, welcome everybody. It is another episode of the podcast. It is obviously your boys, Hal, Colin, Eli, and Andy. But for the live audience, they won't notice anything different. But for the later, when this goes up as a video, there'll be a few changes. They might see that we've resorted back to a lot of people said they preferred the older style of video in terms of pre-recorded stuff. So we're actually gonna do both. So for the guys watching this later, enjoy this beautiful video format, back to the old classic. Got our characters, gameplay footage, artwork, all that good stuff are going up. But for all you amazing people who show up every week to the live stuff, you can still have the live version with our, as I said in our announcement on our Discord, our lovely receding hairlines visible. But for today's episode, it's going to be a bit of a, again, normal live. And if you want to catch the unedited live version with all the donations and all the chat stuff in it, you can go join our Discord, and it's just going to be linked there, right? Still on YouTube, but just linked there, nice, easy to access. But for the people who like the video stuff, we're going to go back to that. I think not everyone preferred all the donations and all the parts that delay the lore. That one's just going to be straight up lore, straight up good chats, all that good stuff. But the live guys, you get exactly what you want. So hopefully we've basically everyone's going to get what they want, and hopefully, guys, you enjoy that. Today's episode though is going to be, well, first of all, it is about Necrons. We have some cool lore. We're going to just we've got a collection of 4 people here who know a ridiculous amount of useless Warhammer lore, and we can't use it anywhere else. But we want to tell you things about the Necrons that not everybody is going to know. We're going to start with the basics, of course, but Eli's going to guide us through this one on his ridiculous, I think, 44-page note, ridiculous deep dive into maybe parts of the lore that you didn't know, or maybe it's probably the most interesting parts about Necrons. But before we do that, Colin, will you please finish your diarrhea story?
See, the funny thing was, the other important news I was going to say was just you should play EU5.
Wow, I really misread
before you brought up that. But no, since you've now put it on me, there was one time I took a courtesy wipe. It was so bad, like it was coming down the side of the bowl.
Oh,
It took a
bro.
I took a
Blog this man.
Gentlemen, it gets worse.
Oh no!
Is that what you plead in the fifth?
No, I'm pleading the opposite. I did a little courtesy wipe of my nuts. There was some poop.
Bro, I mean,
Necrons, everyone.
But today we are going to talk about something where hopefully a race of beings will avoid ever having the problems of flesh.
The Necrons hate poo, by the way. Poo is one of the top 10 things that they hate, unironically. There's something that they don't tell you, and oh my god.
I'll say, Eli, please save us. Please guide us into the Necron lore. Again, we're going to go through some basics, but here's some stuff you guys might not be able to get from just regular sort of lore videos. We're going to go to a few things that we find particularly very interesting. Go ahead, Eli. Take us away from the poop, please.
Well, Levi Gar says, literally first time I came to a live episode, this is what we bring to the table. This is what LoreCrimes brings to the table. Okay, let's go over the basics. Go over the basics, and then we'll cover some of these pre-stream donations, I think. But as we all know, the Necrons are the oldest race in Warhammer 40,000, originating from over 60 million years ago. They were once the Necron tier people. These were odd people, but they were somewhat similar to humankind, more like Egyptian humankind, but on a spaceboard scale. On their original planet, they had a sun that was not very nice, very radiating sun that was causing them cancers and tumors and short life in general. So life was very short for these people. They died generally a pretty painful, agonizing death from cancer, like every single time without fail. But despite this, they were able to kind of advance their technology a little bit and eventually reach to the stars in some living metal ships called Necrodermis. I guess we'll go over that a little bit more later. Despite leaving their planets, leaving their homeworld, the cancerous tumor DNA was so ingrained within them that it continued throughout their entire existence. They just couldn't get away from this, and lifespan did increase. They did find scientific ways to increase lifespan. Being in different planets did increase lifespan, but they were still dying from tumors. Now, the other oldest race around, perhaps older than the Necron tier, even I suppose, are the old ones, the so-called gods, perhaps creators of the universe in Warhammer. They discover the Necron tier, and the Necron tier discovers the old ones. They saw that the old ones were immortal. They had the keys to immortality. The Necron tier asked very politely, can we please have immortality? Can we please stop dying from cancer? And can we live past the ripe old age of 35? Please.
Mm-hmm.
And these these old ones, the lizard men, the fat fellow lizard men, the slan, pretty much said, "No, not for the likes of you."
Get over
Ew.
yourselves, warm
Ew,
bloods.
disgusting Necrontier, get away from me.
About to say, we're about to.
They
If
said.
that's true, we're about to lose Andy, man. R.I.P. Man.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm on my way out if I'm a Necron tier. Not good.
Yep,
No last
yep.
year's.
Swear.
God
Now,
bless soldier.
There's no
Bye,
actual
Unk.
there's no actual recorded amount of time that the Necron tier were living as. We just kind of have to assume that it was very short. But of course, it would eventually get pretty long. But regardless, they're comparing themselves to an immortal being, that being the old ones. The old ones say no. The Necrons here get really angry. The dynasties, for there are dynasties, kind of unite together at this time and fight a war against the old ones, and they get absolutely obliterated, backhanded to the corner of the galaxy where they just continue to wither and die away. And it is around this time, that they meet what are called the Catan, the kind of beings that were around the same time as the old ones, these odd primordial beings that are part of the universe itself, these weird dust cloud space entities that are eating stars. The Necrons eventually make contact with them, and they build these necrodermis bodies for this Catan to inhabit. The Catan then say, "We know about the old ones, and we fought them before, and they're our ancient enemies, and we also hate them. And we also know how to make you immortal." So the Catan strike a deal with the Necron tier, and they teach them how to be immortal in exchange for aid in fighting the old ones and being kind of brought back into a physical form, you could say. This is where biotransference happens. The Catan send all the Necron people through biotransference. Their flesh and bones and blood are moved away through these flames, and they are replaced with bodies of Necrodermis, again, living metal. They are undeniably powerful, extremely tough, extremely durable. They are truly immortal now. But unfortunately, it comes with the catch of the Catan eating all of their souls, supposedly. The commoners lose all consciousness. As you can move up in the hierarchy of Necron tier society, you have more and more consciousness, more and more sophisticated minds. So the nobility generally keeps their consciousness. Some might even say they keep their souls. Perhaps, it's hard to tell. Well, again, the commoners lose everything. The Silent King, at the time Zarek, is given control over all of his people. And they march to war. They march to war like Isengard from the Cruel Scene. They obliterate the old ones, as the old ones deserve. The Necrons are taught how to enter the webway by Niadr Zatha, one of the Catan. And from here on out, there's the biggest war literally ever, called the War in Heaven.
Indeed.
This is fought by the old ones and their creations, the Krork and the Eldar. Colin, would you like to speak about the War in Heaven for a little bit?
Of course. The war in heaven is, well, I mean, like you said, it's the biggest war ever. They made the Krork. Yeah, so when they declared war on the old ones, the now Necrons, that is, the old ones were things. It wasn't great, and I'm just gonna say it wasn't great. They were a little outmatched against the newfound might of these metallic beings. So they started making races and/or uplifting them. To my knowledge, I know the Krork were artificially made. I feel like every time I read Eldar lore, it like wavers back and forth. Maybe they were uplifted, maybe they were created, maybe some secret third thing. Especially once you start talking about their gods, but that's the end result is the ancient Eldar were helping the old ones with their own psychic might. A little bit less than the old ones, but there was a whole lot more Eldar than the old ones, so kind of balanced out. And it was the most like you said, the most horrific war there was. It essentially, to go down the line, it was so bad that it would create chaos because of all the death that happened here. And the Horus Heresy would be a rounding error compared to like your average war in heaven battle. Deploy the stupid Giga Chad music or whatever for how destructive these conflicts were.
I mean, to be fair, we could even say like, as much as like the Horus Heresy is what, like a decade-long war. This is the time spans from which is from
Oh, yeah,
the
It's
Necro tier dying and becoming the Necrons to the actual end in the war heaven is completely unknown. It could have been hundreds of thousands to millions
Yeah,
to
it's
we have no
impossible to
idea.
fathom. Basically, it's
I
impossible to fathom how gargantuan this conflict was.
I think the closest thing to a hint there's ever been given is that the reason there was extinction events on Earth, 65 million years ago with the dinosaurs was the war in heaven. I feel like I read that somewhere. But that was like I feel like 5 years ago I read that. Don't quote me on that exactly.
Mm.
Either way, it's like next level horrific tragedy. The old one's influence becomes, going just very much on the way out. They start kind of like they did in fantasy. They just start throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks just to try and survive. Although, whereas in fantasy, it was an effort to stop chaos, in 40K, it was more of an effort to not get obliterated by Necrons, which is why we have the Jakaro and the funny monkey men. Because yes, the old ones did create the orangutans.
We love to see it though.
I mean,
But
I'm always happy to see it,
what a
Jakaro.
weird choice though, to be fair. What a weird thanks
They deserve
GW.
they deserve an episode.
I'd
Monkeys.
What are we going to
Hello,
talk about?
monkey.
They're good at tech. The
I'm
monkey.
sure
End
they
of
could be
episode.
they could be part of an episode.
They can be
Yeah, part
they
of
can
an
be an
episode,
own
yeah.
segment.
A segment, not a full one. I'm like,
It
monkey. That's the
I think it
episode.
was said though, like during the War in Heaven, the Necrons fought entire races of Xenos slash aliens that
Oh yeah, they're
is lost to time now.
it's like it's in the same vein as when Imperium lore is like there used to be many alien species in this sector. Used to. It's like, yes, there used to be many more creations of the old ones alongside the Eldar and the Krork. Used to. They all were murdered by the Necrons. So it's one of those things. There's very little lore on it, but the scale of it is something that has not been seen and will probably never be seen again in the setting, because of just how horrific it was. The end result, however, was eventually Kegarak. Shout out to the clown god; he's a real one. Convinced some. Ignore that diabetes for a moment. I will fix that shortly. Convinced some of the Catan to eat the rest of the Catan. Like, hey, if you devour their energy, you'll be one hell of a Catan. You'll be very strong. Wasn't necessarily lying with that. He was kind of underplaying how it would then be like one versus a galaxy for the super Catan that are left. And also, in the meantime, the Silent King was doing his own scheming in the background. Is this crouching into Hal's territory?
You can say it if you want. To be fair. You can say it because it's part
Hal,
of this.
Hal will talk later. Hal will talk later.
I'll just I'll get for the rest of this stuff. I'll just outside of internal politics, was Kegarak doing a funny. The various other super beings of the galaxy were taking on the Catan. Kane shattered the Nightbringer. I know that. There was no Necrons involved in that one. That was Kane. It was the only win he's ever gotten in 40K. And slowly but surely, in part because of what Hal will be talking about, the Eldar, the Krork, the old one, well, what old ones were left? There was like 5 at this point. Managed to start pushing the Necron tier back, and then eventually, as I started to say, the Silent King had his own plan, which I understand. Will that be Hal? I understand.
Hal will cover the Silent King in general. I can keep talking from here. This is the beginner section, as one may say. I suppose I got how did I get roped into doing the beginner and the expert section? What the heck? What's going on?
You love it. Don't lie. He loves it.
Well, yes.
Man creates 40-page script, upset he has to talk.
Don't worry. Like 20 of those are character notes. So we won't go over all of it. We won't be here for 8 hours. But anywho, where did we just leave off?
It's the end of the war in heaven.
We won the war in heaven. We won the war in heaven. The Eternal Empire won the war in heaven. As you can see, I wore my Eternal Love shirt. My Twilight shirt.
War in Heaven is like the Vietnam equivalent for Warhammer. It's like, who won?
What do you mean? It was a definite winner.
It was a definite win, but we had a nap.
Andy, that one I don't know about that one.
I think to explain it.
I don't.
Asking American like, we won. We did what we needed.
This is
Vietnam, but like, nah.
Slightly get into terms which is more for the parts that some people may not know, which is a bit for later. But like the Necrons were doing so well in the War in Heaven because first of all they're completely mindless and they serve the Silent King and the Catan and all that stuff. But there's also the fact that the Catan just start civil warring, like Colin said. So they were winning the war so well that they had time to fight each other. So the Catan, the Catan are not very. Say like you probably can guess that they sacrificed an entire species, to eat their souls. They're probably not that concerned with eating each other too. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty bad at this point. The galaxy is in a terrible place.
Yeah, we won the war in heaven. The Necrons won the war in heaven. That's that. But afterwards, after the war in heaven, after these old ones have been hunted down and executed like Jedi, Zarek realizes. Well, he realized already at the very beginning after biotransference, like the second he walked out, he realized that this was the worst mistake he has ever made, and he doomed his entire people. And he's like filled with unbelievable regret. So at the end of this war in heaven, the Catan are like feasting. They're vulnerable. Zarek brings his people together, and they turn against the Catan, and they shatter them because the Catan are part of reality. They cannot be truly destroyed. All but one. Excuse me. All but one. One was truly destroyed, and it had dire consequences for reality itself. Only really for the Necrons, but there's probably some more lore that should go into that. I was gonna say,
did it?
I don't know. Anyways, they shatter the Catan into shards, and they enslave these shards, and that's it. They go to sleep because after this, the Empire's kind of like. It sucks. Things just really suck. Everyone is going extinct. The Necron Empire is pretty weak now after fighting the Catan and also winning the war in heaven. And they foresee the rise and fall of the Eldar. In fact, Orc the Diviner himself is the one who exclaims it. He sees the rise and fall of the Eldar Empire. So they decide it is time for the Eldar to take control of the galaxy. We're going to let them do that because they're going to lose in the end of the day. So they go to sleep. The Great Sleep, they call it. It is Zarek's last command. He puts his people to sleep, and then he leaves into self-imposed exile for the next 60 million years. And that's that. The Necrons go to sleep for 60 million years, and they have recently just started waking up in the 41st millennium, sowing quite the terror and quite the havoc. The dynasties themselves are now kind of, well, obviously waking up, but there's a lot of infighting. There's not a lot of unity in the Empire, which we will kind of get into later. There's a lot of intrigue in Necron society. Some of them have very, very good goals, at least for their own people. Some of them are just power hungry. There's not much unity. A decent sect of the Necrons want to destroy all life entirely. And then another really big sect wants to return to flesh and kind of get their souls back. And a lot of them don't want to destroy all life because life is needed to enslave so that the Necrons can rule over the galaxy, which is a big reason why Zarek needs to destroy the Tyranids. So we're in the 41st millennium. Not a lot of lore advances for the Necrons as anything, but what has advanced is the Silent King's timeline. And I believe Damnos was one of the first battles against the Necrons. It was Ultramarines versus Necrons and a Necron sweep. By the way, Necron sweep. Cato Sicarius took an L.
I think the very first like lore thing. Well, I think there was some retconning. They turned it into the first thing after a battle report was sisters versus Necrons. One sister survived.
Oh, yeah. So now
Although I did like in the Yanari second book where it's just like a Necron in a big prison world, just being like, "Get off my lawn, get off my lawn, and bring this chaos stuff with you. Get it out of here, get out of here." Lets his rain go.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the basic rundown of the Necrons. There's really, I don't think I need to add any more of that, but we're going to go all the way back to the start now and redo everything in a very detailed sense.
So the Necrons of we've done the basics of the Necrons, but Eli, you've got a lot of lore pieces that you want to bring that maybe the uninitiated might not be aware of. We're going to expand out the story to much more depths of the lore, because the Necron lore, even though it's not necessarily in novel form, it's some of the more interesting parts of all of Warhammer. I think many would agree.
And perhaps 2 years from now, we'll do another Necrons episode, and I'll just keep going for 2-hour PRs, and we'll have a 5-hour Necron episode next year, 2 years from now. But this will be a fairly comprehensive overview of the Necrons, missing a few things I must regret, as I've not read the most recent books, and I've not reread a few books recently. But I've read pretty much every Necron book, except for the 2 new ones. I'm in the middle of one of them. Yeah, I think I've read every Necron book except for like 1 or 2. So, going back to the beginning, 60 million years ago. Now, as I said before, this was a Egyptian-esque society. There's very much so a hierarchy. But overall, the culture of the society, they were obsessed with death, extremely obsessed with death. Their short lifespans obviously played into this. They lived in tombs, literally. They were basically just guests passing by in their short lifespans. Now, they were more obsessed with legacy and building, and then their actual lives realistically. They used cubits and something called ket to measure. I'm not sure how big a ket is or if a ket is real, but a cubit is real.
A ket is about this big. It's got a tail. And it goes meow.
Okay, very,
Someone
very
say
funny.
ketamine?
Very funny. Okay. And after I go through this overview, I also have a bunch of like bullet points of just like facts that I'll list off for an hour. Maybe not an hour, but it'll be cool. Ancestor worship was very common. So is pain. So is the blight, which is what they call this cancerous issue that they all have. Every morning upon waking, you go through this rite. I cannot remember the gosh darn name. It sounds like asphyxiation, but it's not. But you go through this rite where you go through this rite where you check your entire body.
Is it excruciation?
No. It might be somewhere else in these notes that we might find later. But every morning, these people go through this rite and they check their entire body for tumors and bumps and all that, the inevitable ones that will eventually show up. Now, as I said, ancestor worship was very common. They had a pantheon, but it was not really like it's kind of not really that big of a deal to them. It mattered, but so did the ancestors and stuff.
Is it the same way in which it's like there's a Norse pantheon where they're more like grand beings rather than they actually think they need to they make offerings but they don't pray every single day.
Yeah. They also treated stars as all powerful beings, and they pretty much believed that stars were sentient. Well, they did believe that stars were sentient, and that demons from these stars were causing most of their problems, if not all of their problems. So they had something called the Red Harvest, which is where I guess it's further on my notes, but these things called the Crimson something, we'll find that name later, came and rounded up people for this Red Harvest, and these people were to sacrifice to the stars. It was kind of just like determined randomly. So tough stuff, man.
Is this Aztec influence, do you think, in some sense?
I guess
maybe a little.
Maybe
a piece in the sun gods with ritual sacrifices.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess so.
Could be.
These Crimson Wardens, they were called something like that. We'll find the name again later. They were kind of outcast from society. They were very honored people, though. They were very honored, very, very esteemed, but they kind of lived by themselves. They were very feared, obviously, as they were the royal executioners, basically the royal sacrificers.
Understandably so.
Now, even as the Necron tier progressed in technology, the commoners were still nothing more than commoners. They lived in mud shacks. They did not even have the same level of sentience as the nobles, whose royal Heka was true and grand. The higher you go up in nobility, the more divine you are, essentially, until you're basically that of a god. Not quite, but basically. Their will is reality. It is called Heka. Heka is, well, it's divine will. Anything that a nobility says will become reality. Their speech is the words of reality. There's like a story of one king in a chariot who rides up to a castle and he wins an entire war just by speaking these royal Heka. Is it real? Is it just myth? Kind of hard to tell because it's Warhammer.
Whatever
But
it is, it's heckin' good.
They sure believe in it, and they still believe in it to this day. If um if a noble says something and it is not seen in reality, it is up to the commoners and the servants to make it so, for it is truth. It has just not become true yet. A statement filled with Heka cannot be denied by the galaxy itself, and it is reality. Hopefully that makes sense. So as they slowly progress in technology, it obviously takes a while, but some people, most people, do make the most of their lives in achievement wise. It's not really like there's no living life. There's no enjoyment in life. There's not much art or music or anything like that. It's mostly about legacy.
Yeah.
You're erecting
And
statues, you're trying to like further your people in general, but there's no passions, there's none of that really.
And every piece of artwork is depicting death or avatars of
Yes.
death or
Yes.
crypts or dead
It's
stuff.
very
It's like, that's
death
where we're
obsessed.
going.
Yes. Now the scientists though are generally pretty good. They work really hard despite their short lifespan. They work very quickly. And the Necrons, as I said before, do take to the stars in these living metal ships, these necrodermis ships. Living metal is a bit of a mysterious substance, but it is seemingly an organic substance that grows and just has existed since way back then. It's very unsure what it really is. It's kind of liquidy, but it also is solid.
Nanomachines.
And yes, it is.
Nanomachines.
Yeah, it's basically nanomachines. When a Kroot eats a Necron, this is some neat lore. When a Kroot eats a Necron, the living metal has tiny little microscopic scarabs, like nanoscarabs, basically in it. And the inevitable fate of that Kroot will be they convulse and then their stomachs explode as these nanoscarabs eat through them, and they have like an alien-esque death. So,
Well, that
Oh.
quite sucks.
yeah,
You know what that reminds me of though? Like, have you ever seen those like CGI videos of like how cells work? And there are like kind of like cables in your genetic material that these like little beetle-like things scurry along that pass like materials along, and you're like, huh? And it's like when you look at like the itty bitty stuff of like human organisms, there's like a lot of weird like critters and stuff that work inside. Even just like the surface of your skin has like billions of teeny tiny creatures that like live on your skin.
Oh yeah,
And
there's
they're so
more.
microscopic.
There's
Yeah.
more like not bacteria. Like, there's more creatures inside your eyelashes than there is like dirt on a toilet seat or something like that.
Yeah.
You've
There's more beings on your hand than there is in the world's population. Like, ooh.
you've heard it here first from the LoreCrimes crew.
It's
There are
very
bugs under-
toilet themed, considering.
There are bugs under your skin. Get them out. Get them out. Get them out.
They're cool. They're like
Oh,
little
man.
they're little goobies that just carry stuff and like, this goes over here and that goes over there.
Like I say,
know.
I don't know if Eli's going to mention this part specifically, but there is a thing with nobles how maybe not everyone knows this, in which they, even though like the nobles are completely, like basically a peasant is like an animal to them in some sense. Not all of them are wasteful in this sense. They still see peasants as part of society. I don't know if you want to go. There's a specific part in Twice Dead King, isn't it? I don't know if Eli was going to mention that scene, but there is some indications in which some of them are like, yes, they are like peasants, but they serve a place in society, and then their life is valuable in the sense of it is building material
Yeah,
for the
that is
grand empire.
Again, their sentience is basically they are sentience, but the noble's sentience is here. The commoner's sentience is down here. And I mean, Hal kind of summarizes it pretty good. Each commoner has its place in the Necron tier society. and they are generally just kind of seen as resources. Now, Jaehaerys gives a lesson to Altix, the character from Twice Dead King, where he just murders these like these guys training like right in front of Altix, and he says like this, like his life led up to this point. This was what he was meant to do. These people are fuel for our fire, and you cannot regard them as like real living people. You cannot feel bad for when you kill them, when you use them as resources, because they are wood for the fire. They are resources to further the glory of the empire. It's an honor to die in such a way, and that person died so that you could be taught this lesson. Hopefully that sums up what you were trying to say.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal though, isn't it? And then
what
there's
kind of people?
but it goes to show you like life is its value, but in a different way, in the sense of like Stellaris or any Paradox game version of people like truly are numbers, and they are people.
Well, that's slightly different because in Paradox games you need to be a genocidal monster, otherwise your frame rate takes in the end game. I'm not killing you for any superiority reasons. I just don't want to look at a PowerPoint.
And also the blight, the cancers, like the nobles are just as terrified as the commoners about it. They see some scenes with them, and they're like, I think it is in that same book where they see some of the commoners who are affected by it, and like this person is kind of in the sense of, if you know the picture of like Elephant Man, it's like quite shocking in the novel.
Yeah. Anywho, back to kind of what I was saying about nanoscarabs in living metal. From a crew perspective, the story goes as this is just random facts. I guess that's kind of the point of this episode, though, isn't it? On the world of Karok, a deadly disease had infested the Kroots, who had attempted to learn the minds and purposes of their metal enemies, those being the Necrons. And by the feast, the Shapers on Karok were hard pressed by the Necron onset, had feasted upon the metal flesh of some of their foes, only for their own flesh to be consumed, eaten from within by infestations of nanoscarabs, which then burst from the hollowed-out bodies of the Shapers, infecting many kin bands. So don't eat Necrons if you're a crew. That crew does try to eat one in Kazarkin, and he tries to like throw it up and stuff. It's a cool book to read. Okay, where were we here? Where were we here? Yes, here, Necrodermis. It also has the ability to regrow and regenerate almost instantaneously, which allows the ships to soar through space and repair without any real damages. Makes it really easy to put on autopilot and go to sleep. So these people go to sleep for a very long time, reach new planets.
Because it's also, I think, worth mentioning that like the Necrons do not have any connection to the warp. They do not have psychers.
Yeah, no psychers whatsoever. But they do have some magic shenanigans.
All into intelligence, all into science, like none into mysticism. It's like all about, like, I guess what the Emperor wanted, which is like secular society. It's like, look where that got the Necrons.
Although I will say, do you theorize that's because with psychic power, due to it being linked particularly with sentience a lot of the time, or like heightened emotions, the fact that most of Necron society, they crush their emotion, they don't allow it to exist because of they're basically a caste system. And the lower ones don't. So in a way, like, it doesn't come up because they suppress that part of them so much when they were in flesh.
Maybe.
I also wonder, like, no Necrons are like, they don't have ambition beyond, like, even their sciences where we need to develop technologies to escape death. Yeah. And then they escape to the sun of their planet and we're like, oh no, the cancer's so bad, it's in our very DNA. There's no hope. And I wonder if that's also like a thing of like, why have hope or ambitions that can feed emotions into the warp when we know we're doomed anyway? And that's kind of like maybe a factor, but that's just speculation.
Yeah. So anyway, they go to different planets. Now, unfortunately, even on these other planets, as I said before, the cancer was just too inlaid within their genetics. But they did carve a decent empire and eventually advanced to pretty high technology. But as I said before, even the commoners still lived in mud huts. They had circles of nobility and like rank and structure and hierarchy, with commoners on the outside living in mud, and then eventually get to the very inside where it's paradise, the coolest place you've ever seen. Now, mind you, we don't know how long they were living in the times of spaceships and stuff after this, their lifespan probably increased by like 20 years, maybe. I'm just kind of guessing. But I don't know. According to the internet, I guess a long time ago, I read that this could go up to like 200 years or more. But their only comparisons would be the old ones that they would find. So if you're comparing yourself to a tree, all of a sudden you're whatever 500 years of life doesn't seem that long.
You are always going to come up short against forever.
Yeah. So now that the empire spread far and wide, the dynasties have become very strong, but word spreads slowly, and there's obviously people who are far away from the authority of the Silent King. Silent because the Silent King does not speak. He speaks through his Treyarch Praetorians. More on that later, I suppose. But
this is not Zarek, we should say. This is not Zarek at this time.
There's a long line of Silent Kings. Zarek is the last and mightiest, of course, but Civil War.
Fair, your reign is like 5 years. Like he had a great reign. He was a long-lived king. How long did he live? 25.
Yeah. It's honestly very hard to tell how long they live. In the books where they're describing the time of flesh, it kind of seems like they live for a decent amount of time because there's enough time to have a lot of achievement finished.
And bear in mind, a Terran year is different from a Necron year because we don't know how many times their planet revolves around the sun or how they gauge years or time.
In theory, they could all, they live for thousands of Necron years. It's like 50.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. My roommate is home walking around. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, so Civil War happens as the influence of the Silent King does not quite reach the edges of the galaxy, and the dynasties start to just hate each other. And intrigue really starts to flow in this time as I guess things have become more comfortable, things have become more stable. People are getting power that they did not have before, and so the desire for more power grows greatly. And there's so much nobility who hate each other. So political intrigue and assassinations and civil war are rampant throughout the society. Now, the Old Ones are discovered around this time. The Treyarch asks the Old One for immortality, and of course, they say no. So, sorry, I gotta check these notes again. Okay, yeah, this is when they fight the Old Ones as well.
For this.
They band. The race now bands together. The Civil War ceases for a bit, and they fight Zarek's War, is what it's called, against the Old Ones. And of course, they are completely obliterated. The dynasties, the empire is shattered, and the second Wars of Succession start. Even worse than the first. It's extremely, extremely bleak for the Necrons. If things didn't change at this point, they probably would not have survived for another like century or so. They would have gone extinct, essentially.
I think also the part that people may not, at least this is it may be some theory / I think this is in the lore, which is not everyone might know is which like the reason they fought the Old One is most likely a mix of what they feel is like somewhat betrayal because the Old Ones are so amazing and they seed life on planets. Why would they not protect them who is alive? They are life. It's jealousy as well because I think it's the Silent King at the time. I might be getting this wrong. I don't know, Eli, but he wanted to unite, basically stop the Wars of Succession. He was like, "Oh, there's actually an enemy we can all fight together and steal immortality." So it wasn't. You're thinking why the Necrons do this? It was in a way, it was a diversion to save them, quote unquote. So save the empire. Yeah.
Anyways, back to the Necrons. So what we just said, the second Wars of Succession are currently going on. The Necrons are going to go extinct, it looks like. But the Silent King is I got something in my eyeball. The Silent King and his scientists / cryptex at this time probably discover some weird anomaly things eating stars, and these are the Catan. The Silent King, through two of the Treyarch, makes contact with these Catan, which are gaseous animalistic beings, which are given intelligence through their necrodermis bodies. At least it seems. It's kind of hard to tell. Before they were in these necrodermis bodies, they were kind of just like forces of nature, almost. kind of like not really sentient. There's not a lot of explanation on it.
The
but
idea is
they're-
like their sentience is the hunger is the only thing they feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't quite have
Yeah.
things more complicated than that.
Now these
There's
cheeky
Star
guys,
Kings.
when given the bodies
Cheeky
of the
guys.
Necron tier, the bodies of Necrodermis, they took on the forms of the old Necron pantheon of gods, kind of further playing into their godhood stuff. Now, the Catan are as follows: Azagorad, the Nightbringer; Mephit Ran, the Deceiver; Magladroth, the Void Dragon; Neadrazatha, the Burning One; Zarhulash, the Potentate; Kilugra,
Zarhulash sounds like a dish. It's great.
yeah,
Zarhulash.
But yeah, that I quite
Made
like
special.
With some
Landagor,
hummus.
the Player;
Sorry.
Sarah Noga, the Outsider; Ugranya, the World Shaper;
Bless you.
Lushudra, the Endless Swarm; Ogdriada, the Arisen. Yeah, okay, and that's it. Kind of let's go through them one by one, I guess. Azagorod is basically the Grim Reaper. Well, in fact, he's literally the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper and other forms of death exist because of Azagorod, the Nightbringer. He is death incarnate. He is death itself. The edgiest you can really get of these guys. He is what haunts mortal beings in their nightmares. He is the shadows and the scary monsters that are under their bed. He is literally the concept of death as a being.
Bro wants to be Batman so badly.
Where do you take the joint?
Would you do this, Eric?
Where is he? Where is he? Where's the Silent King?
My dad was named Neoth too.
Okay, Mephit
We did it
Ran.
all day, by the way.
Mephit
My
Ran,
mommy's name is Martha. My mommy.
the Deceiver, who, by the way, did not go by the name of the Deceiver when he talked to the Silent King, for he was the first one to make contact and speak with the Silent King. He was the one to strike the deal with the Necron tier people, to fight the old ones, to claim immortality, to unite his people. He is the master of illusion, the master of trickery, basically like a Loki-esque being, has a lot of power over reality itself. Magladroth, the Void Dragon, the most recent model of new Catan. Most recent isn't like years ago. We haven't got another one, unfortunately. Even though Neadrazatha is still kicking around, but the Void Dragon is perhaps, maybe, just maybe, the original Omnissiah.
Oh, he's
Maybe.
definitely the Omnissiah. Come on. Come on.
Probably.
Come on.
Maybe not anymore. Maybe not anymore.
God bless
Once the
machine
Emperor
god.
came, he took the place of the Omnissiah in theory,
Boo, even worse.
but the Void Dragon is pretty much the Omnissiah. And it's maybe a full Catan.
Well, I mean, it can't
don't
really
really know.
be, can it?
They have something very suspicious in Mars that is the Void Dragon. I guess it's not a full Catan. We have the Catan shards of it now, so maybe it could still be. I don't know. We don't know, but potentially a shard or the actual thing is in Mars. The book Mechanicum or Mechanicus, whatever it's called, they meet it, and there's like this weird sect of guardians who watch over the Void Dragon's tomb. It has literally been years since I've read this book, so like Horus Heresy Bros, step in whenever you want.
No, you did. You did all right.
Okay.
Whilst Colin immediately signals like, nah.
I think
Colin is doing some kind of like hex to try
And
and
for that
ward
reason,
off the evil
I'm
spirits.
afraid I'm out.
Colin's doing like a prayer.
Colin
like
grabbing the
Madonna.
crucifix and being like,
there's potentially the Emperor potentially fought the Catan of Void Dragon. Probably it's a shard. Probably it's all very vague. But the Emperor had like a Dragon Slayer Excalibur sword guy moment and fought this thing on Mars. I guess and banished it to the crevices.
It's like that one painting that's mentioned in one of those fucking books. It's like Saint Michael beating the serpent. We got to make more
George.
bad comparisons. Look, the
Yes.
Emperor's Jesus. Except he's clearly
I-
not.
I do like that comic strip though of just like the Emperor on a big horse riding up, and it's like
I have
the
seen
Catan.
that.
It's just like, come on, bitch. Yeah.
Bring it, motherfucker.
Emperor moment right there.
But we say
And I think
this Catan is like technology is almost like its DNA, isn't it? It's like it has integrated completely with
the
it.
great the golden age of technology can perhaps be attributed to the Void Dragon, as it shared its secrets with the then cult of Mars. Maybe.
Hmm.
Maybe.
I
There's not a lot of confirmation about stuff like this, but it has, like, it mentions this in books, and there's
There is a weird exchange where in the Iron Hands book for Card and Stronus, I think it's Eye of Medusa, he's roaming Mars when he's training as a tech marine, and he stumbles upon what can only be described as Cerberus from mythology, and it gives him guidance to like sort out his problem in that book. And I was like, what the fuck? It was just such a weird departure from the book. It's like there's like a weird monster that's roaming Mars, and it's like a three-headed dog thingy. I'm like, what? And I think that maybe is like connected somehow.
how did that get here?
Huh?
Mhm.
And it's like part of their like mythology of Ferrus Manus, where they've made like texts where it's like he met him once when he was young, and like, huh? Maybe he's a Necron.
But yes, the Void Dragon has master technology. It is Magladroth that taught the Necrons how to make a lot of their technology, which is the best in the galaxy. We have Nephoron, who I missed, I guess, in this first reading, the Spiral Flame. He's some random guy, I guess. Neadrazatha is the burning one. He's fire. He's all about fire. That's his thing. He's the fire guy.
Destruction.
There always has to be a fire guy. But he is destruction
The one-
incarnate, obsessed with destruction and suffering and like causing anguish and pain. He is the guy who helps the Necrons create the Dolmen Gates. A little bit more on those later.
Ooh, fun
which-
fact: Guernsey has a dolmen.
Okay, Guernsey would
Yeah,
have a
ancient
Dolmen Gate.
burial
If there's
site.
anywhere in the world to have one of these freaking things, it'd be Guernsey.
We got one.
He lets them in to the webway. That was the biggest advantage that the old ones in the Eldar had, was using the webway, which allowed you to traverse literal armies across the breadth of the galaxy in, if not moments, days, hours, weeks. Regardless, it was a safe way to traverse the galaxy. It's what the Emperor was trying to get into and not telling his sons about. Very important, still around today. Dolmen Gates still around today. And Neadrazatha taught them how to do this to get in there. This was kind of the turning point of the War in Heaven, when they were able to get into the webway, and Neadrazatha was able to spread his flames into the webway, searing the old ones and the Eldar to a crisp. It is said that all the Catan asked for payment for their knowledge that they gave the Necrons, except for Neadrazatha, for the screams and pain of the old ones and their children was enough payment for him. That's
Shoddy
Neadrazatha.
fire burning on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'd say after the first three mentioned, in fact, he might even be more. Neadrazatha has a lot of mention in 40k lore in general. He's generally like the go-to generic Catan shard that often gets seen either as a battery or as a weapon. Anarchy the Traveler uses one to help the Blood Angels. So it's cool. It'd be nice to have a model for him, but one can dream. One can dream. Though we have Zarhulash, the Potentate.
It was very nice with a side of salad. It's a lovely dish.
Bro's literally a potato. Wow.
I'm thinking of like goulash. It's like goulash, and it's like sounds like goulash.
A shard of Zarhulash, the Potentate, was used to power one of the 8 Necron warp beacons known as the Theros. Little thing there. I've not read that Horus Heresy book. If that counts as a Necron book, I haven't read it.
Back on
but
sofa.
These two have. Is there anything important to mention there in the meantime? Do you want to talk about the Theros, I guess, maybe?
All that I guess they're like, oh, bear in mind this is in the Horus Heresy where the Rift Storm is causing problems, where Gilliman's making a second empire in case the previous one falls. So Pharos device / sofa is really useful because Barabbas Dantioch, the goat from the Iron Warriors, does like some experiments. And he's like, oh, we can teleport things instantaneously across the galaxy. That's really useful if we want to, like, or at least before the Rifts, the Ruin Storm, we can use this for logistics. And Gilliman's like, did somebody say logistics? That's my favorite thing. And then the Night Lords have to ruin it for everyone. But it's very useful, and they don't know it's a Necron thing really until Belisarius Call's book, The Great Work, I think it is, where he goes back to Sofa when it's like been ravaged by Tyranids, and he has some scythes with him, and they're like, "This sucks. I like this place. I grew up here. This is where we're from." And it's like, shut up. I'm looking at stuff.
It also might be like the device on Sofa, which is like mountain size, which is say.
Mm.
The interesting thing about it is that it self repairs. So usually, like, you know, a mountain or building tectonic plates move over millions of years, but Necron buildings were designed to literally they self repair themselves, kind of like how, you know, Romans have like their sort of concrete that's lasted for thousands of years. Necron technology is, they designed their buildings in a way in which they would last for millions of years, because that's why Necron tombs have not, you know, later on when they go to sleep, you know, for the millions of years.
It does outlast the Tyranid invasion from High Fleet Kraken, where it picks clean all life, but the Pharos device, the Sofa device, doesn't get destroyed. And it's like, yeah, because he's under the mountain. Then Belisarius crunks Catan. He's just like, ha! Get out of here, loser. And you're like, yeah, another
It's not a
Imperial
particularly
win.
big shard, we should say. It's not a particularly big shard there.
It's
a
like,
small one.
yeah. How big's your Catan shard, Hal? If you're gonna compare.
8 inches. What?
Which one does Mr. Uriel Ventress fight? Is it the
No, Cato
Nightbringer?
Sicarius.
Oh, it's just Cato.
Cato
It's just
Sicarius.
Cato. It's not Uriel Ventress.
Yeah. It's
and Uriel Ventress. Yeah.
Does he?
It's supposedly
the vortex grenade one.
The Nightbringer. Supposedly he's.
Oh yeah.
That was Cato against the Nightbringer.
Okay.
Well, there is in Uriel's book. He has like a. It's not him that takes it down, is it? It's the Or Mephiston does some stuff with. Anyway, everyone gets a Catan win now and then. But usually it's a bit of a Catan. It's not a real one.
Yeah, it's not like an actual proper shard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anywho, where was I? Just the other Catan. I guess there's Kalugra, Master of Destruction. There's this guy in the Spiral Flame, even though Niazdra Zatha already does both of those things. I'm not really sure. There's not really any lore in these things. Landagor, another one of the most important ones, who is the Flayer. He's the only destroyed Catan shard. He was probably, after the Nightbringer, definitely the scariest one.
There's another one, but we'll get to that later.
True. I suppose. True. Maybe. He was destroyed, though. I guess this is kind of jumping in a little bit forwards in time. But after the War in Heaven, Landagor was destroyed, and this messed up reality. He released a curse, Landagor's curse, which is the Flayer virus. We can talk about that later, I think. Sara Noga, the Outsider, was tricked by Kegorak to eat the other Catan and went insane. He causes madness and sewer slide wherever it goes, and it's trapped in a Dyson sphere beneath the galactic plane. That'd be cool if GW brought that guy out.
How do you convince your bro to eat your bro? That's kind of crazy.
Kegorak's
looking like a snack.
Kegorak's got the speech 100 or whatever.
I know. Could you eat any of us if pushed?
I think it's more likely we should eat Eli because he's the smallest.
If it was just like, I got some protein goals to get to.
A god was involved in this chicanery. All right, don't be too hard on him. You know.
And it's the god of trickery.
Yeah, the god of being a funny little guy.
Yeah, but he wasn't the god. But then he was like, was he talking to the god of snacking? Like, what's this about?
The god of snacking, my lord and savior.
Okay, then the other guys don't really matter. Ygrania, the World Shaper, Lashudra, the Endless Swarm, Ogdriada, the Arisen. That's that. There's a little portion in the Necron Codex of like an Eldar talking about them. That's pretty much all the lore you're gonna get for most of these guys, which is mostly just mentioning their names. Anyways,
and to be fair, I kind of like that they're kind of mysterious, similar to the Lost Primarchs, and some things we don't need extra detail on. Leave them mysterious and weird.
I would really like to see more shards in the game, though. That'd be really cool. At least give us Niazdra Zatha, because he is still an active thing and is around all the time. So that would be nice. Okay, so back to the timeline, I guess. Mephrich Ran, the Deceiver, talks about the old enemies of the old ones, how they were in a scrap once, and that supposedly, allegedly, the Catan were in such a primal state because the old ones kind of seized on them and beat them up. Supposedly, all of this stuff you don't know. It's literally coming out of the mouth of the guy who's named Deceiver. So unsure if any of this is true. But
I'm of the opinion the Catan are lying, because they went from a state of they're just pure hunger to, when the Necron tier gave them bodies, they start to awaken sentience, and when they awaken sentience, they aren't good beings at all. So therefore, when they want to eat more, they need an excuse. And there's, what unites people more than an enemy? A common enemy, isn't it? So I think they probably never even came across the old ones at all before. The old ones saw them before, they just left them alone because they valued life.
Yep. I think. Yes, sir.
Okay, Colin. Go, Colin.
I wish that possibility was more discussed in lore, that someone is just simply in an instance full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I hate to tell you, it's like Zinch fans. I'm like, I'm sorry. He might be lying on some things.
Oops.
Now, in my opinion, this is all just random theory, but like the Chaos Gods are conglomerations of emotions and things in reality made into form. Supposedly, the Catan are potentially actual forces of said thing from reality. Like, Azagorad is the concept and the force that is entropy and death. The Deceiver is literally like deception and illusion and all of that stuff, and so on. They're, in theory, they might be like the actual forces of the literal universe that are the physics and stuff of the universe. There's nothing to really back that up. I'm just saying stuff, and I think that might be true. Deceiver talks about the stuff, and he says, "I know how to make you immortal, and it'll be great, and we're gonna beat the old ones together." So the Silent King says, "Yeah, sure," or his triarchs say, "Yeah, sure," and he offers all dynasties amnesty if they end all civil war activities and join the new cause. So they then become the Necrons. Biotransference is shown to the Necrons. They are taught how to create these giant, horrific factories that people are forced into. No one gets to avoid biotransference. It is the royal decree of Zarek himself. Everyone is forced to go through this. Some are dragged, kicking and screaming. People are hiding. You can't avoid it.
And to be fair, some people are like, what else have I got to lose? Like, I know in Twice Dead King, there's an account of people with stretchers of dying people running towards them, and then they're like, he's dead, keep going, drop the thing, and then other ones, it's like, he's got a minute left.
Yeah, there are people who like literally die on the way to biotransference, which, by the way, is a better fate than what is going to happen to them at the end of the day. Is there an afterlife for Necrons? Who knows?
Yeah.
The warp isn't really a thing. I mean, it is. The warp is really chill at this point.
Well, there's no afterlife for Tau, because Tau don't.
In theory, like, there's no proof. There's really no proof for it.
Well, they're just kind of dim. They're just like they're like.
Yeah, but dim doesn't mean they don't exist.
Because they still have souls.
Does this mean they got small souls? It's like
yeah.
How big's your soul?
I think
it's this big. It's this big.
I think it's most likely that there wasn't enough coalescence to create dark warp entities such as the Chaos Gods, which therefore would swallow up or devour other good things in the universe.
So
there's an also cool bit of lore maybe some people don't know is like, I think this is correct here. Like, the old ones imprisoned all the Necron tier back to their original home world, I think, or their home system. So when this was happening, all the dynasties are like cramped back onto the place where they basically end up dying because of their horrible son. So they're very desperate and slash.
But then again, they do go through a great wealth transfer every decade. Like, come on, guys, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I can't afford a house. You can afford a house. Calm down.
Yeah, but like, they're great empire. I think it's.
I know they
it's-
were kicked back to like a corner of the galaxy. I'm not sure if it was their whole system. That wouldn't really make much sense unless most of their society was wiped out because they wouldn't fit on
'Cause,
one
I mean,
The
system.
thing is, I think
They're
it's
not-
mostly their system, not
they're
their.
not going to have faster than light travel, are they? So it's like they're going to be hibernating anyway to get anywhere.
Mm.
So maybe it's just like it's impractical to expand too far from our means because, like, yeah.
Well, I know, I
Yeah.
do know that the old ones basically punished the Necron tier for their
Yes, they
action.
were very brutal.
Yeah, they wouldn't wipe them out because they do value life, but they utterly outmaneuvered, out magicked them and out obliterated them, and they were punished. So that's why they particularly hated the old ones even more now.
Okay, so biotransference is going up. We'll get to the war in heaven, and then we'll do some donations. Biotransference. These I don't even know how long it'd be. Your entire society is lined up to get in this factory. You're probably waiting, if not days, like weeks, maybe even months. Some of these people literally die on the way there. So it's probably a long time of waiting.
It's
in this
billions
big
upon
line.
billions, isn't it, of
Yes,
people?
like
I
there's
mean,
multiple factories. Like there's
more,
not
I'm
just
sure.
one factory for the entire civilization, but you get the idea. But in these factories, it's not really, no one knows what it looks like in these, but the fires of biotransference strip away their flesh and their bones and their organs, and they replace everything with these living metal bodies, which do have their own physiology and anatomy, if you could even call it that, which we'll get into later. And the Catan were above all of this, feasting on the souls of all of the Necron people. So during this time, every last Necron tier died. There will never ever be a new Necron. There will never be Necron tier children ever again. And in theory, most, if not all of them, lost their souls and were replaced by these clones, essentially, these digital clones, kind of. But
Yeah, they're not the real, like, say we talk about characters like Trazyn or Zarek, other ones. They're actually dead.
In theory.
In theory,
theory.
it's like an imprint of them on a Necron
It's hard to say.
body.
Some of the characters, the lore is a bit inconsistent. Some of the
Yeah.
characters have very soul-like personality and quality traits.
I say
And
this
it's
is
potentially, in theory, one could say that maybe the nobility kept their souls, or at least had a piece of their soul put
Yeah.
into the necrodermis, into their body somehow. But all of the commoners, all of them definitely 100%, all of their souls were consumed by the Catan.
Well,
So if there was an afterlife, they're not going there.
this is also probably gonna make me sound insane, but sometimes, like with stuff like blanks, Warhammer seems to imply that you don't need a soul to live.
Yeah.
No.
Like it's optional.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh, Andy Desktop. Andy Desktop.
But also, like, there is also the thing of, like, when I watched the Pariah Nexus thing, and it was about the sniper class, what they called the
Death marks.
Death Mark. He's talking to the Mad Genius guy. What's his name? Not Sarek.
TF2 Doctor.
Xeris. Illuminor
Zeras. And he's all
Xeris,
like,
yeah.
you will go and shoot these people. And he's like, you're kind of stupid. He's like, I am not stupid. And he uses words like believe, and he uses like quasi terms, and he's corrected by him. He's like, you will not utter those words in my presence. So like, obviously he has like a brain and a mind still. Well, not brain, but a mind, a consciousness.
Mhm.
But maybe it's like an ascending scale of like, if it's just like a Necron Gauss rifle wielding warrior, nothing.
Yeah.
And then Death Marks, it's like you get enough sentience to do your job, and then you have no ambitions or anything. And there's also command codes, which is a whole other kettle of fish. Command protocols. So like
protocols,
yeah.
It's really hard to say. But essentially, as you go up in ranks of hierarchy, the more sentience, maybe even the more soul you have. Warhammer has also shown us that souls can be split into multiple pieces. So, like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's up to
Or
people's
Sanguinius,
interpretation.
whose soul is scattered through time, as Targatai Yusugai said. He's like, oh, it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's why
But
so
now,
morose.
an entire species of a galactic empire that once was, is turned into Necrons, and each one of these things is now become a killing machine warrior, or better. So like, there's probably trillions, if not quadrillions or more, Necrons that
Even
exist.
the babies, it's crazy.
And they're all these soulless killing machines. It's like if you took every single person on planet Earth, whatever amount of people, and turned every single one of them into a
Super
immortal,
soldier.
nearly indestructible super soldier, that would be enough to take over a ton. But now you have an entire galactic civilization of manpower. You create an entire species into manpower. It's hard to really explain how like insane that is. And it's Warhammer, so they don't understand numbers at all. But it's like literally an unfathomable army size, which then plays into how the War in Heaven is so insane. But as these legions of people march out of biotransference and their personality and souls are stripped away and feasted on by the Catan, they are all marked by the Ankh of the Triarch. They are also marked by the Dynasties symbol, but only the highest nobles may bear the full symbol, with other Necrons bearing only parts, with warriors and sometimes immortals being seen as chattel and not worth marking at all. Vehicles are marked, and I mean, a random fact here, I guess Doomsday Ark is a subtype. A Doomsday Ark driver is a subtype of a lord that's in the notes right here for whatever reason. Okay. I guess that's there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more. These notes feel a weird order, but it's okay. So now when a Necron dies, their algorithmic consciousness goes back to storage banks, which are in a tomb world or a tomb ship, depending on where they are. And they are then remade again, hence these reanimation protocols. And even if you kill a Necron, completely eradicate it, their consciousness still exists as long as they have access to something called the interstices, which is kind of a space between reality. It's like a digital space, more or less. So as long as they have access to the interstices, whenever you kill a Necron, they'll simply phase out. Their body, whatever remains of it, will go back to the tomb ship, to the tomb world, and their consciousness will go back to the databanks, and they will eventually be made again. So unless you get really lucky on the 1% chance and completely obliterate them, every time you kill a Necron, they're probably coming back. Now, mind you, every time this happens, they do lose a tiny little shred of who they are, of their personality, of their function. So this eventually does rot you away into nothing. Wait. Now I guess we would be in the War in Heaven. Oh my gosh, we're on page 3. Okay.
You're not going to be able to do all of it.
Okay.
Rick, okay. All right. It's the War in Heaven time. It's the War in Heaven time, everybody. The most exciting battle in 40k that we know nothing about. Now, as we said before, the War in Heaven is where the Necrons gear up. They take this unbelievable technology, literally like reality bending technology. It's not magic, but it might as well be called magic. It abuses physics to a degree we cannot even understand. They have incredible, unbelievable technology. We have cryptex now who've learned these sorcery. It's basically sorcery, but it's math. It's math sorcery where they bend physics and they bend time and they mess with literal reality to make things happen. They
Necrons
march to
literally went,
war.
I like science.
Yeah.
That's the power of math.
And they already had very powerful technology, but
The
Catan,
diabetes needs to be mastered as well, apparently, because it's been it shouts at us each
You
time.
just step right in.
the Catan fast forwarded this or propelled this to an unbelievable degree. They march to war. They fight the old ones. Goes pretty well. It's a tough time at first until Neadrazatha again shows them how to get into the webway. And then that is kind of the tipping point of the war. Now, this war is like literally, as I said before, it's unbelievable. There's nothing in our imagination can come up with what really happened in this war. Stars are literally thrown at each other to use as ammunition for weapons. Like entire planets are destroyed daily. Millions and millions of people, their lives are spent on the daily. Again, this is a battle of trillions, maybe quadrillions of soldiers and reality-shattering weapons. And again, it's so unbelievably insane that it creates the Chaos Gods. So the theory goes. It's barely even theory at this point. It's pretty much confirmed. The stuff with the enslavers happens as well, I guess. That is also after the War in Heaven, right? Is that
they're
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of during, isn't it? A little bit.
Well,
but
it's like
the warp
towards
isn't
the
told much, you know.
closing acts.
Yeah, sure. Now, the Catan in this time are feasting on trillions of souls and are swelling and becoming unbelievably powerful, like literal gods of reality, strong enough to destroy the old ones, to beat the old ones. And of course, beat the old ones they do. They destroy the Eldar, they destroy the Krork. The Eldar are left a little bit better than everyone else, I would say and assume. And after this, as we said, in the Catan's kind of time of, I guess you could say they could be fragile this time after the time and they're feasting, yada yada. Zarek, realizing the mistake that he made and that the Catan deceived them and tricked them and brought about the worst fate they could have possibly have, he would have rather his people have just died out than what has happens to them now. He decides that we're going to kill the Necrons. The Catan, sorry. They do kill the Catan. They shatter them, as we said, because they cannot really be destroyed. Landagor is destroyed and it releases the Flare virus upon the Necrons, which I don't think they really know about until they start waking up. I'm not sure. That could be wrong.
Although from what I've seen with my the section I've been covering, one of the characters is aware of the flare virus after they've just woke up because their Pharaoh's
Yeah.
in slumber, and he's like, I hope he doesn't have the flare virus. That would suck.
Yeah. And what am I saying? Okay, so we win. We win. The dynasties are a bit weakened from this crazy fight with the Catan. It's another reality bending, crazy, wacky fight.
We should say
And-
they utilize weapons to break the Catan, which they basically deemed that is almost not worth ever having them again because it it ruins the universe to do this.
They're so powerful at this point that they get rid of a lot of their technology because it is so unbelievably destructive.
I've heard a theory that the Ghoul Stars is their fault. Like that's why that particular area of space is so messed up. It's like that's their fault because they shoot one weapon. I can't remember what it is, and it like fragments reality itself, and it all goes wibbly wobbly. And they're like, let's not do that again. That sucks.
I did have a theory.
So, yeah.
I think how they did it, which is the what's the there's that series where the aliens are like trying to take over planet Earth, but they're like a few hundred years away. So then the humans have to battle them through their own mind because they found out humans can lie. I can't remember. It's
is that Ender's Game?
There's something problem. Something
No,
problem.
I don't know what that is. I feel like I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's people in the chat might have to, or people who are listening live might have to help me out for this one. But it was there's something problem. But then
Sounds
it
like a
ends
cool
up
movie.
in that series though. It ends up basically being there's like a whole theory about if you let other aliens know you exist on a certain level, they basically destroy others. The three body problem. That's it. They destroy other civilizations. It's called the dark universe theory or something, or dark forest theory.
Yeah, we don't know of any aliens because they blow up all the ones who.
Oh yeah,
have
but
the power
the moment you broadcast your presence, 5 million rods from God.
No, but there's the part I was getting to was like there's a bit in it where like really late in the series they have the basically getting spotted by other aliens means they use dimension weapons, and they basically see Earth and like our home system gets collapsed into like a second dimension, and then that's what kills everyone. So I wonder if they had something like that where like it's like dimension ruining weapons, like obviously would shatter a being such as the Catan. Cool stuff, that thing. Yeah, Dark Forest, really good series, by the way. Really, really good series, Dark Forest Theory.
Cool. Very cool. These Catan shards are basically sources of limitless energy. They are reduced to, not really reduced, they're used as batteries now. They are literally enslaved to the will of the Necrons. And they're basically just mini versions of Catan. They're in Necrodermis. They're very powerful. They still have a lot of the powers that the Catan have, just in a much more contained manner. And they are controllable. Sometimes, unless they're like left alone and forgotten about, then I guess they kind of just can't be controlled. Like in the Infinite, in the Divine book, the Deceiver Shard is left to its whims and is still a complete troll and goober. There's a Deceiver Shard that pretends to be Alfarius in a book that I haven't read, that Andy has read, I think.
Oh, it's good. Like so it's Sons of the Hydra. It's a bunch of Alpha Legionaries who are loyal to the Emperor. None of them are true Alpha Legionaries. They're like captured from other chapters and made into. There's like a Night Lord or a Viler, etc. Blah blah. But they are given information by a cryptech who works with the Alpha Legion, and then they betray their overlord, the Angel Bane. And long story short, they do this whole rigmarole of things for this Necron cryptech, and then the guy in charge, Occam, is like, "You will take me to who I think is Alfarius, or I'm going to kill you." And they find him in like the center of the galactic core on this space station, and it's Alfarius. But say, "No, it's a Catan shard," and you're like, "Oh no!" And then all the Alpha Legionary guys are like, "What? That's my dad." It's like, he's not your dad. That's
Is
a
it Omicron? I think they
Catan
see
shard.
Omicron, isn't it? I can't
Well,
remember.
they think it's
Alfarius Omicron.
Alfarius, but it's like, and it's like the Catan, and then like Occam's like, "We need to kill this Xenos bitch. He betrayed us." And then they blow up the space station. And it's like, oh, we had a tease of a Primarch, and it wasn't real. It was a Catan shard. You cheeky boys, stop being cheeky boys. It's a very good book. I'd highly suggest it.
I think
I would like to read it.
it might also suggest in the law that the prisons / containments for Catan shards are not always perfect. So they're still able to like somewhat manipulate things outside of their prison. Not necessarily the Necrons all the time. Maybe
I
the
do think
Deceiver,
it
but
is
other
a shard of the
races.
Deceiver, to be fair, that deceives the Alpha Legion. Was like, that tracks. That tracks.
Yeah. Where was I? This is the time when we go to sleep. Orc and the Diviner and other such chronomancers or chronomancers is what they're called. They have
One of those.
divination powers, though. They can see the
Dork.
future. In fact, Orkin was originally very against biotransference, and he told everyone what was going to happen, but no one listened to him. But now they decide to listen to him, and he tells of the time when the Eldar Empire will rise and then fall. And so he decides, and other chronomancers with him, the time limit for the Great Sleep, which is 60 million years. Now, Zarek, this is the last command he gives for his people to sleep for the 60 million years. He destroys the command protocols that he once had. I think that's still canon. I have not read the newest books. I think that's still canon.
Yeah, I think it adds a layer of
think so,
tragedy
yeah.
to the entire war, which was like once they became Necrons, they were enslaved to Zarek, and then Zarek was essentially enslaved to the Catan by the fact that he could never fight them, even if he had his full Necron. So he planned for this later.
Yeah, and now they see that the Eldar are ascendant, and now they don't really have the Catan. The Eldar have unbelievable psychic potential at this time, psychic power. They do become the most powerful galactic empire for a long time.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
also
yeah.
Until they mess it up big time.
But they have one advantage, I think, over the Necrons, which is there'll never be a new Necron.
Yes.
But there will be. Eldar can still be born.
Yes.
And
As
fight.
slow as that process is, there still can be more. Now in old lore, and this has technically not been retconned, there can be new-ish Necrons called pariahs. And in theory, this can be done with any
Dawn of
living
War.
creature.
Thomas Maccabee.
Yeah, it's questionably canon, but it is still technically canon because it's mentioned in recent sources like the Pariah Nexus and stuff
I
like
think
that.
the thing is, it was an experiment by Seraz, and he tried it, and then he went, "This is a dead end." So it's not been retconned, but I think the Necrons are like fun experiment. Not great.
I guess anything could be biotransferred, couldn't it?
In theory, but the means of biotransference are not really known anymore.
I don't think you can.
Well, I guess
biotransference
like the
Tau.
actual lore is that only the biotransference was made for Necron tier, and if you send a non-Necron tier thing through it, it doesn't work correctly.
Well, the way they make pariahs from humanity is they have to have the pariah genes. They have to be
so you have to have a blank.
nulls.
It's these things. Those guys.
Yeah, so like
for the
Sisters
for
of
the
Silence
video
or the
stuff
male
later.
equivalent, which aren't made into them. Yeah.
We'll get a picture on screen. Maybe
we'll get a picture on screen
we'll
for people from Dawn of War.
If our internus Maximus is listening. But anyways, pariahs are basically these quasi Necron things where they turn a human blank into a Necron. There's still some organs inside of them because they can't go through true biotransference. But they have war size. They're blanks. They're very scary. Thomas Maccabee is a guy in Dawn of War. Does he have any lore worth noting? Andy, I know you did
Not
a
much.
3-minute video
I
on
did a
him.
video on him. It's not much. All you got to know is that
Awesome.
you can't be a soul if you want to be a Necron. That's the rules.
Yeah. And Orkin, as a quote from Orkin the Diviner is, time is a weapon like no other. If nothing else, I can simply wait for my foes to rot, and wait they do. For the 60 million years they slumber, and the Necron do indeed rise and fall, just as Orkin said they would. There's a cool quote in this old book. Now, speaking of the old book, the old Necron lore, the retcon stuff was the entire species was fully enslaved to the will of the Catan, the gods, and had no really free will / sentience at all. They were just Terminators. The nobility maybe had a little bit. It's kind of like wishy-washy, but the Catan actually remained in the old lore. This is retcon. This is not real anymore. The Catan themselves were still gods and remained in the old lore and were still kicking. And their goal was to enslave and eradicate and consume all life in the galaxy, and they used the Necrons. These Necrons were just these really scary Terminator-esque things. And I found a cool quote. Some Eldar believe that the Necrons are a worse threat than Slanesh herself. That being Illic Nightspear. He knows a lot about the incorrect, is what they call the Necrons. Now, this Eldar quote from this old lore, but this is still canon, I would say. The Banshee's call shall wake the dead when dark portents wax nigh. Heed them as the counsel of a seer or a father. The Yingir who have slept since the birth of chaos shall crawl once more from their tombs, thirsting for warmth. The war in heaven shall be as nothing to their vengeance. For the sons of Azaryan, few in number, cannot stand against them.
I just like the South Park quote, I think sums it up quite well. How do you kill that which has no life? And that's how the Eldar are like. How do you fight the Necrons? Yeah.
And the eye of Isha shall dim, closing for eternity. Such a gentle goddess cannot witness such atrocities as they shall wreak. The soulless ones shall be the harbingers of the dark fate. Then shall come the living dead, the progeny. Then the thirsting ones, the forever damned, and the galaxy shall run red as the blood of El Dinesh. The Vol moon shall bring forth the dragon. The master of death will drink deep from Isha's eye. That which lies outside will be drawn to the harvest, and the jackal gods shall turn brother against brother. The four shall take their place amongst the stars, their legions ascended unstoppable as the night. A deadly shroud shall fall across the spirit, and the galaxy shall mourn. Pretty edgy. Pretty edgy and cool. Speaking about old lore, is there anything worth talking about the Chaos Android stuff, Colin? I know you did recently a Rogue Trader thing. Is there anything funny worth noting there?
You can clearly see they're the precursors to what Necrons would be. I mean, just like visually looking at them, that is clearly a proto-Necron. But Rogue Trader was a magical time where not only were robots commonplace and regularly employed in war by everyone, but the Eldar weren't even the only ones who had shuriken cannons. They're among a variety of other weird things. In fact, Chaos Androids aren't even in the very first edition of Rogue Trader. Like, they're not in the core book. They came out a little bit after. But no, they're just chaos corrupted robots. Shove a demon in the robot, send it forth. So they're like, if you can go find old chaos model art in androids. Again, it looks like a Necron. Their design became the Necrons, but chaos corrupted robot is about as far as you can get from the Necrons while still being a robot.
Although I have a source that might point to chaos corrupted Necrons.
Ooh, do tell.
I've got a section, so I don't know. It's too early.
I will wait.
It's all Death Watch stuff, Death Watch RPG stuff. But I did videos on these characters. I was like, I didn't know they existed. I'm like, neither did I. And then I found them.
Maybe a Death Watch RPG writer was having some fun bringing back the Chaos Androids. That'd be cool.
Was there more to say, Andy, or are we good?
Sorry?
Or is there? That's all. I thought there was more to say, so we're good. We're good. It's time to wake up, though. It's time to wake up. It's been 60 million years. It's time to wake up. Not everyone wakes up at the same time. There's a lot of problems. Turns out 60 million years is a long time to be relying on stuff to work, and so time kind of messes up a lot of things. The Necrons are sleeping within tomb worlds. These tomb worlds, you're old hell. Wow, these tomb worlds
Thanks,
are
bro. Thanks.
these
Cheers.
tomb worlds are watched over by these Cryptek made autonomous spirits, kind of like AI, but also the Necrons do sort of actually believe in the machine spirit as well. Maybe the Void Dragon imparted machine spirits. Maybe that's a thing that happened. I'm not sure. But it's watched over by these autonomous spirits, the tomb worlds, the tomb mind, and it uses canoptics, these little beastie insectile things that kind of upkeep the tombs. They guard the tombs. It more or less works pretty well. Some tomb worlds are destroyed in natural disasters. A Light Hawk hunts down a lot of tomb worlds and just kind of purges them because the Light Hawk really hates the Necrons even more than all the other guys. Illic is from a Light Hawk. The biggest problem, though, I would say, is other than just a lot of people not waking up at all, the biggest problem is the mental issues that the Necrons find themselves plagued by, which are the Destroyer virus and the Flare virus and overall madness. The Destroyer virus, the origin of it is unsure entirely. No one really knows where it comes from. It might be a flaw in some kind of coding or some kind of thing left by the Catan. It's not sure, but it turns you into basically what the old retcon Necrons were, which are nihilistic, want to kill everything Terminator robots. Destroyers are obsessed with extinguishing all possible life, not just sentient life, but all life down to the bacterial, microscopic level. There's a scene in the Trazen book where he's talking with the Destroyer, and this like Destroyer is this weird genius evil scientist guy who's causing natural disasters to speed up the process of destroying the entire planet and like eradicate all the life from it. They want to get rid of trees and plants and bugs and humans and everything.
Isn't
These
one of
guys
them
are
like attacking the ground to kill the bacteria in the ground, isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah.
They hate. They're the I don't know what game it's from, but the weird fleshy computer that says that he hates things a lot. I'm sure.
They're-
Oh,
they're-
I have no mouth and I
they're-
must scream.
Yeah.
They're
They're
that boss fight from Doom that floats.
sure.
What's it called? Cyber Demon? No, not Cyber Demon.
That is a thing.
Beholders?
It's the one that has like a little like
Cacodemon?
dump truck.
Cacodemon.
It's got a dump truck and it floats. No.
Yo,
It's like
he's
it's got
got
a
a
gun arm
dump
and it
truck on him?
has like he's got a dump truck and he floats and he's got like a slab for legs. I found the picture. Now I need to know what he is. He's in Doom 2016.
You sure that's not the Cacodemon?
We'll work on that. We'll work on that. Eli,
Yeah,
if you
I'll
can.
figure it out. I'll
Okay.
figure it out.
So that's the Destroyer virus. The Destroyer Lords and regular Destroyers.
Doom
and heavy
Hunter. Sorry,
Destroyers.
it's
All
a
right.
Doom Hunter.
They're the beetle guys who float. I love them. They're one of the coolest models in my opinion. Then we have the Flare virus, which is really sucks. It's Landagor's gift. It's some believe it to be myth, but it is very much real. It's depicted differently in a lot of books. Sometimes it's a slow encroaching thing that kind of almost implies that it'll get all Necrons eventually. Some books it's an immediate thing that happens. Some books Flayers can turn other Necrons into Flayers and just transmit the disease that way. Some sources don't think it's infectious at all. Hard to say for sure. Flayer patterns are not recalled to the Tomb World. The Tomb Worlds know what a Flayer is and don't let it back in. So when you destroy a Flayer, they're gone for good. Generally, of course, they still like can reanimate with their living metal and stuff. But in one book, in the Enriquer the Traveler novella, there's a Cryptek who succumbs to the Flare virus, and she kind of hears it as a constant like buzzing and static in her mind. And this weird Landagor message comes out of one of them, and it says, "To those who are faithless and wretched in their jealousies, so those who are faithless and wretched in their jealousies, to those who have denied us, to those who have denied me, I will wreak vengeance. I will rent your souls and break your bones. I will cast hunger through your accursed existence down the eons. You will not forget. I will grant you this gift from love, turned aside and make you like me. Break you in my image as you have broken me. I shall cast the fear of myself into you and all of your kind. I am Landagor. I am the hunger. I am the Flayer. And from this moment, you shall be too." So I suppose that's probably what he said when they killed him. The Flare virus also plays into this thing called the diasporic, which is like the phantom brain of a Necron. It's largely spoken about in the Twice Dead King books. It's kind of like the imprint of their brain still exists, and it is it's like this cage thing trying to get out of this metallic prison it's been put into. It makes them think that they are still in actual bodies, but then they realize they're not in actual bodies, and they spiral into this like crazy panic attack type thing. They if a Necron might like try to breathe and then realize it has no lungs, so it can't breathe.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's suffocating, even though it
Yeah.
can't.
Oh, my heart is racing. Wait,
Yeah,
I don't have a heart. Wait,
Yeah.
why do I feel this beating pulsate? And then it goes bad.
and
Goes
and
bad.
this diasporic phantom mind seems to get worse and worse the further you progress down the flare virus path. And with Twilight King books, they are it's very much a process that slowly creeps up and gets you. One of the characters is like caught trying to like stuff flesh into his mouth, and he's like, I just have a little bit on Sundays. It's not a big deal. Uh, but that's what the flare virus
It's
does.
my
It makes
cheat day,
you
said the
the,
Pharaoh. You're like,
the
yeah, it's fine.
yeah, the flare virus makes you crave flesh, like drastically. It makes you want flesh. It makes you want to be a being of flesh again, and makes you want to eat flesh. So these things, the flayers, will grow their long fingernails, become animalistic. They get the power to walk within this dimension called the Ghost Wind, so they can just pop up wherever they want and like kind of tunnel through reality. And they are probably one of the scariest, worst things you can encounter in Warhammer. They will literally flay you alive and wear your skin and take your organs and try to stuff them into their mouths, which they don't have. They have no stomachs. There's not a hunger that they can ever quench. It's literally an eternal hungry.
I have no stomach and I must feed.
Yes.
I do think of the one which was in Twice Dead King, where the one pops up behind the guy and just goes shh, puts his long finger to his mouth, his little grill, and was like, "I'm gonna kill this guy," you know.
In the book Kazarkin, the flayers can go to a sleeping Necron and like put their heads on theirs and turn them into a flayer. That's the only time that we see that really happening. But and then in the Anarchy the Traveler, when a canoptic spider runs into a flayer and it like turns it all red and affects it as well. So I don't know, it's wacky. The last main problem plaguing Necrons is just madness, generally. Insanity, madness. Some wake up insane, some develop the insanity after literal eons. But for example, someone might wake up and they've lost a part of themselves in the Great Sleep. Take Xandrek, for example, who still believes he's a being of flesh, but not really. But a lot of Necrons will be like that. Like there's the Necron Lord in the book Kazakin, who is completely convinced that he is still a being of flesh. He still breathes. He still has blood. He still thinks all of these things. And he's like obsessed with making these wacky sand castles. And obsession plagues the minds of a lot of these lords. They're either insane or obsessed. Every single character is kind of affected by at least a small flaw as the eons, the time has ravaged them at least a tiny bit. And yeah, as they wake up, they see that it is their time to take control of the galaxy. It is their time to reclaim the stars. They have now come to see every other species as insects who are utterly below them. Some of them don't even believe in their sentience. Anarchy the Traveler does not believe humans are fully sentient in any way, shape, or form. They are apes, they are insects, they are germs and bacteria. We are nothing to them. This quote here says, "We are less than cattle to these beings, chattel to be cast aside, consumed or made sport with for their pleasure. There is not one amongst them that would pay heed to a world of man as I would to an ant on my boot." Now, Zarek, in his final days, was very much contemplating returning to flesh, and this lingering thought has kind of touched a lot of the Necrons, as it was the last thing on his mind before he told them to go to sleep and got rid of the command protocols. So there is, as I said earlier, a decent chunk of the Necrons who want to go back to their bodies of flesh, as they believe it will bring them real life and souls again. Trazen, the Infinite and the Divine book is mostly about this, of them trying to return to the flesh. And there's some random lore stuff in there that's kind of fun. But overall, flesh is seen as kind of disgusting, this taboo thing. They don't want to touch it ever. And the machine is sacred. The Necron is sacred. They are holy. Their stones are sacred. Yeah.
So, to bringing the podcast full circle, you're like, how do they feel about poop?
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Probably.
the eschatological or whatever they call it, plumbing, generally pee and poo, is like literally the nastiest thing that they never want to think about. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to even like be associated with it. They don't want to think about it at all. It's nasty, and they hate it.
Straight up not shitting in this bitch.
Yeah, yeah.
The poop they did a pee. By
Man,
Sarek.
this
Yeah.
Denny's on a Wednesday was not my most pleasant shite.
Me at
Oh, man.
White Castle at 3 a.m. Necron's worst nightmare.
Taco Bell is there. Do you think they annihilate like Taco Bells on site because they know what happens there?
Oh man. Oh, man.
God-forsaken things happen there.
No, there is an interesting part. Like, I think one character they think he gets poo on his hand, and they go like, like
Yeah,
they all
yeah.
and
have
it's,
like almost like a mental
there's
breakdown.
I have something about that somewhere in these notes. I don't know where. I didn't mention something at the beginning, which I really liked. I don't know why. I think I just forgot to say it for some reason. There was one guy. I can't really find the thing, but I just know it exists. One time, to appease the stars, they sent like a noble who took his ship and all of his people and just flew into a star as a sacrifice, and he's like honored to this day. And I think they still have his face lying around or something.
God bless.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to be that's all I can think of playing, even though it's not relevant at all.
Okay. During the Great Sleep, there was one caste of Necrons who stayed awake, and these were the Treyarch Praetorians. They did a very unique job, and very unlike a lot of other Necrons. Their job was not only to preserve and watch over the Tomb Worlds, but also to spread Necron tier culture and Necron culture, just in case the Great Sleep didn't go so well and nobody woke up. They wanted to make sure that the Necron culture, the Necron mindset kind of survived the eons. So these Treyarch Praetorians would go around studying other cultures and finding out lots of things about other races, and they would also just spread Necron tier culture. So there's a decent chance, even though it's never really talked about, that there's entire planets out there who like believe in Necron gods and live like actual Necron tier did, which is kind of cool. These are also the servants of the servants, the eyes and the ears of the Silent King. He speaks through the Treyarch, the Grand Judicator. Yeah. Anything else cool around this section?
Does that maybe hint to the fact that because in real life there was ancient
Pyramid.
Egypt, like
yeah,
like in our world, then maybe
Yeah.
it implies that one of them at least had an influence on humanity in some sense.
I think
even,
Red
like,
also
the
has a
Thousand
theory
Suns.
about this. I don't really remember it that well, but
Prospero is influenced quite heavily by that similar type of culture as well. So maybe it could have been a hint to there as well. That'd be quite interesting.
now I guess I misspoke earlier. First contact with the Imperium is potentially in 793.m41 when an Inquisitor comes to investigate why Solemnance was completely ignored by a High Fleet. Solemnance is Trazen the Infinite's planet. And he has, everyone knows the Trazen quote where he's talking about the lady who he captures in his Tesseract Labyrinth, which is, by the way, one of the worst places you can possibly go. And then Damnos.
If you're smart enough to get out, idiot.
Yeah. Damnos happens. The Lord awakens there. This is kind of old Necron lore, but not really. It's still canon. It's kind of newer Necrons, more or less. I don't know, but they awaken. They supposedly they use Dawn Brigades to take much of the webway as well. I guess
I was gonna say technically, then this is like from when into like when it was like was it early 2000s. This is in the M41 is when they first come across Necrons, but the Necrons, at least according to Infinite and the Divine, some of them had awakened actually just before the Horus, like a few thousand years before Horus Heresy.
Watches the Horus Heresy happen on live TV, basically.
And he says it's really boring.
He's
just like a soap opera drama for him.
No, he said
it's like the Super Bowl. He's like, yay.
He said the Great Crusade was boring, but the Horus Heresy made it interesting. And I remember that very specifically because I remember thinking, yes, we need to jerk off the heresy more. Thank you.
I know he said the Imperium makes the universe boring because they're so uniform, and he likes unique things to be added to his museum. So he took lots of things from the Horrors Heresy when that
There's
kicked
some
off.
Ultramarines. They'll come in handy later during the
Look,
fall
and
of
these ones
Cadia.
are colored red, and these
Lol.
ones blue. This is cool. Fucking bullshit.
He took the Emperor's Children's gene seed as well, didn't he? He took their Vault.
He
Yes,
took
he did.
Fulgrim.
That was his.
He's got-
That was his
took
biggest
Fulgrim.
troll. He literally, he trolled the Emperor's children. We'll go kind of quickly through
Everyone
the
does.
dynasties, and the modern structure of the hierarchy of the Necrons, and then I'll maybe skip stuff about random things, and we'll just go into my fun facts section because this is probably gonna be about 3 hours. But
Bruh.
we'll chill out. We'll chill out a little bit, and then we'll just skim over the characters. And we'll have to wait for my magnum opus 100-page Necron video that will happen
Bruh.
someday.
Characters might be its own video, to be fair.
The characters
so-
will be their own video, yeah. So we'll skim through them when the time comes. But as for who's in charge right now, it's changing now that the Silent King is back. But for the most part, Imhotep was kind of the big man in charge. Now the Silent King is coming back. But regardless, they're both from the Sautek dynasty. Oh, no, they're not. Sorry. Imhotep's the Sautek dynasty. Zarek is the Zarakan dynasty, if I remember correctly. Yes, Sautek more or less are in control. Zarakan are on their way up with the coming of the Silent King, with many worlds under his controls. And we're maybe seeing a rivalry Civil War thing. I got to read these 2 goofy new books, even though they're Space Marine books, but I'll do it. But anyway, the structures goes as follows. We have the hierarchy, the Triarch. The Triarch is the Silent King, and the 2 other guys who are important. I don't think the 2 other parts of the Triarch exist anymore. I think it's just the Silent King. There used to be 2 other heads to the Triarch, and the Silent King spoke through them. Now it's the Silent King and his Triarch
Well,
Praetorians.
they're on his dais of destiny, aren't they?
Oh, that is who those
Yeah,
are, isn't it?
His
Yeah.
fellas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the random dudes. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I guess sorry, the Triarch still exists. I'm a big
They
fan,
don't
I
wield
guess,
the
of
same
Zarek.
power that they once had, though.
Yeah.
They're simply his puppets almost now.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we have the Pharaon, who is a ruler of a dynasty. Then there's an Overlord, who's ruler of a cluster of planets, who usually has many legions. A Lord is a ruler of a single world. Random nobles in a court would be Cryptex, who are the techno mages, but they're very important and independent generally. The greater court, the greater lords who have military mights. Just there's like a bajillion random nobility positions. Then you have Lich Guard, who are semi-sentient beings, depending on what book you're reading, who guard the nobles. They can also act as kind of lieutenants and kind of direct operations when needed. Then we have Immortals, who are kind of like sergeants, almost kind of. They're very good warriors. They're kind of the best of the best warriors back in the day, and they have little like echoes of sentience left to them and little echoes of who they are, but not a lot. They can also kind of direct troops. I guess maybe Lich Guard would be more like whatever would be below a general, or our generals and immortals are more like sergeants slash
Are
lieutenants.
the Lich
don't-
Guard?
Lich Guard can conduct entire operations. Immortals can kind of like just guide little portions of your army.
Lich Guards are captains, maybe?
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. I don't know the military that well, sorry. Warriors, of course, are the lowest of the low, and they live in a constant torture of just barely having enough sentience to long for better times, but are at the same time too dull to even realize it. Theirs is a very
Ugh.
unfortunate existence. But if you're killed enough times as a warrior, you're reduced to a completely blank slate, basically just a thing that can be controlled by the nobility. Now, the nobility, every step
And
above.
this is a dub?
Yeah, I don't know. Every step up grants you some sentience and control over this step below you. An overlord slash lord and all of them can completely one-to-one control their warriors. Okay. Dynasties, as I said before, Zarakan is the Silent King's dynasties. They hold the most powerful power and influence over the Necrons. They also contain the majority of great relics. The Sautek are the largest dynasty, though, and their Pharaon is Imhotep the Goat, the Storm Lord. They are implacable and unstoppable, and Imhotep's made the most progress for the Necron Empire, arguably, since he's woken up. With the Mefrits dynasty, they're experts at harnessing power of stars and making them go supernova. They were greatly employed in the War in Heaven. Unsurprisingly, due to this ability to create solar system-ending weapons, we have Novak, the bloody, spooky, murderous fighters who give credit to the ancient rites of blooding. Remembering these rites, they paint their armor red and fight often in brutal close quarters combat. And they have something called the Crimson God, which is like one random line in the Necrons 8th edition codex, which is a Catan shard enslaved by Novak, who is known for its like incredible destructive power, but it's not very easy to control. Nefrek, their crown world, has trinary stars, which they use as a grand energy source. Their cryptechs are very skilled. Dynasty created something called metagold, making their legions glitter, and they are the masters of translocation. They also, I wonder, it's right here. Here's a quote from some random guy in a random short story I read, some cryptech guy, I think. My dynasty was subsumed by Magada during the last war. This is a Nefrek guy speaking. I and all scions of the once mighty Nefrek dynasty were bound up into the regent's own legions in exchange for his protection against the alien usurpers, but we weren't to know that he was nothing more than a paper prince, a bumbling coward. It was Kesmes, another character, who won our battles and guarded the borders of the enclave as Turekin's designated war leader. And now that he is gone, I'm left in most precarious position if my involvement, blah, blah, blah. And then this cryptech basically helped overthrow this Turican guy who was taking over the Nefrek dynasty. And then they released the World Engine, which is a whole nother thing. Neelek, it contains the head of the Yithseer. Oh, yeah, this is in the Trazen book. I haven't read out some of these notes for a long time. Some of this is new, is news to me. They contain the head of a Yithseer, which they use to scry the future, and their realm was taken by lesser beings, so they now war. They war and hunger endlessly to march and reclaim their territory. We have Obdobek, a dynasty of expert craftsmen whose skill is carried over at the time of the machine. They boast great technomancers and wild hammers. What is that supposed to mean? I don't know, man.
We're gonna kill you with hammers, I believe.
Yeah. I guess an importance battle in the War in Heaven is the Battle of the Solkar Gate. It's like the end of the war. It's a very mysterious thing. This guy named Unas survives the Solkar Gate conflict with haunted visions, seemingly doomed the Ithacus dynasty and brought about the flare curse upon that entire dynasty. The Acrops, the big ship, is even affected by it with the machine spirit changed. Calrentier, that's a world, but we can skip that. That's less important. Okay, moving into some fun facts because it's been 2 hours already. Let's go through some biology of the Necrons. The
Chad, this
diaspect.
is
Yes.
a lot of stuff that I wouldn't know beforehand, which is quite. We did a quiz ages ago, and I literally couldn't tell you any of this stuff. It's actually quite well. Again, it's just mostly codex lore, isn't it? Though, so it's not novel form for
The
most of this.
cool lore.
The cool stuff,
No,
the
this is-
battles, and all the cools.
No, it's a little bit of each. A lot of this is actually book lore that
Made
is just
up.
compiled
Oh, I didn't.
together.
That's cool.
There's not a lot of codex lore for Necrons other than random events that happen. But the Twice Dead King was pretty big for Necron bros. We got a lot of lore from that book. But okay, I'm gonna go through the biology. Just gonna read through these notes. The diaspect I mentioned again, but this seems to be probably a better description of it, maybe from the book itself, is the phantom mind entombed within the flux patterns of every Necron, not knowing it is dead, only that everything it needs is not there. When it emerges from the depths, it causes intense panic and terror. The Necron is overcome with a need to heave for air with non-existent lungs, to eat and drink to fill a non-existent stomach that has been starved for millions of years. They need blood to flow through their long gone veins, and a heart that isn't there suddenly fails to beat. It is as if every function in your body failed all at once, yet you somehow lived, trapped in a state of complete shock as the non-existent nervous system lit up with every signal it would have sent if these organs ceased to work. So pretty agonizingly horrifying.
Yeah.
Some Necrons have an evocatory medium, like Ultix from the Twice Dead King. This allows for something called revelry, which is real, unbiased memories, exactly as events happened, taken from memory engrams and Hecatic inscriptions. When used, though, the memory can no longer be accessed and slowly becomes the memory of a memory of a memory. Can have partition sub-vessels, which bear submines, which for Altix's case, these submines are like multiple personalities within your brain that can kind of talk to you and you can converse with, but you still have control over them. A phantassery buffer is a mind's eye. You speak through vocal actuators. Mometic buffer is a memory. Data flows through the core flux. Vestigial arrays flicker in the mind, and the Necrons receive actuator signals almost similar to the nervous system, mimicking facial expressions and the like. Discharge nodes relay patterns that act as actual expressions and emotion. Ocular flares, interstitial glyph signifiers, and discharge node patterns are these expressions and facial patterns. They use auditory ciphers for sounds, such as clearing one's throat. They smell with chemoreceptors. Pretty cool.
Wait, Necrons smell?
They can with chemoreceptors. They can do
What's
taste.
I don't know what
mean
advantage that would be to
smell?
them.
Hello.
They know a
I
scent is
mean,
there.
Smell
if,
is useful.
if you're fighting a
It's
guy and
literally
he
a
smells
sense.
of like he stank, then you're gonna be like, "Ugh, and you'll be like, I can't. You'll be like one hand's off your sword. So you.
I mean, it doesn't also have to necessarily be like, for combat, right? Like if I come home or something and or like a friend comes over and they reek of alcohol, I know what's up.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
Is
I
it
guess
that
it's
time
just-
already?
I would assume there's no
1 in the
downsides to not being
morning?
able to smell, and they can
Yeah.
turn these all off generally. Maybe not all, but most.
Or if I sniff and I retch, I can tell that they've had the chili dog.
Chili dog.
That's
In
instinct, though.
in response to something, circumspection protocols alert
what?
a Necron, and in regards to this, they can use something called a chronosense, which allows them to perceive time in a slowed or fastened state. It doesn't actually increase the flow of time or decrease it. It's like, I
Their
suppose when you're,
perception.
it's your perception. It's like if you're doing something you enjoy, time flies. Time flies when you're having fun. I guess it's tapping into something like that. Eons can go by. There's like a Trek Praetorian standing over a tomb world will turn on their chronosense as fast as possible, so that millions of years will go by while they just sit there, and like it only feels like minutes or days or hours, whatever. And then circumspection protocols that they set will alert them if something happens and take them out of their chronosense. It's also very useful in combat. You can slow things down to a crawl to be able to react better to your opponents. Divination protocols and algorithms work to predict events. Orb, oh my gosh.
Bro's having a stroke.
Orbiculums, whatever convey holographic messages. Core flux is what powers the Necrons. Diodes feed the core flux to motor arrays. Rogue Necrodermis can encrust joints. It has to be clean. A Hecatic array can cue seals and commands that resonate with control nodes or open gates. Oculars can see through 1,000 arcane spectra and can switch to wavelengths far below the visible. Every Necron has a thoracic cartouche. Necrons, these nobility generally, or Cryptex maybe can project into scarabs and other such canoptics by way of something called an ocular scry. Royal Instinct, little fact, I guess Royal Instinct goes deeper than enigmatic damage. So someone like Xandrek, even when he's being a goofball, he still understands the authority and epicness of Imhotep, even though he's kind of wacky. Memories are burned into engrammatic pathways, and you speak through, as I said before, probably vocal actuators. There's some Necron biology for you. I think that's pretty cool.
Damn.
Oh,
No.
Andy, you can decline if you don't want to anymore. But as I spoke about dynasties for a little bit, you could mention the Jericho Reach stuff if you want.
Yeah, I'll go through it. It's kind of brisk. So there is like a cool dynasty in that like we only really hear about Sarek, Imhotep, and that's kind of it.
It's pretty much
But the
it, yeah.
Jericho Reach stuff is kind of cool. And there's one dynasty called the Subakar dynasty. They hail from the crown world, as they call it, of the Hollow Sun, and their rivals are the Charnavox. And the guy in charge is Armontech, the last Pharaon. He was feared across the stars as the Crimson Scythe or Star Slayer, and he was a harbinger of death and destruction. This guy killed a Catan, and I don't think it was a shard. I think it was like an actual one. But maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. He destroyed the planet of Maldek with a single strike of his war scythe, which was plunged into the ground of Zoth, and the Eldar fear him so much that they are continually trying to assassinate him. Basically, he went to sleepy buys with the rest of the Necrons during their 60 millennia of slumber, and so embittered was he about biotransference and his betrayal by the Star Gods that while he slept, it broke his psyche until he became like an avatar of resentment. Until one day, everyone else wakes up and his blood relative Ahotep, and bear in mind Amontech, Ahotep, kind of similar, but bear with me. The Overlord Regent. He tries to wake him up and he's like, "Oh no, he's not waking up. This is bad. This is really
This is gonna be
bad.
Weekend at
He's the
Bernie's.
pharaoh." Yep. So Ahotep now rules the Subakar dynasty in his place. Amontech, even though he's in a comatose state, he has the command protocols of his dynasty. He knows about a bunch of treasures across the Jericho Reach of different tomb worlds and caches of weapons. Bear in mind, these are the same guys that made like a little map where you can just like prod a finger and a sun explodes. Not this dynasty, but like the Necrons in general have like this thing that's just like boop, and then the sun explodes.
The
Like
celestial
who knows?
orrery.
Yeah, the orrery. So who knows what these guys have? And so they attempt. So basically, Armontech is like, I'm sleepy buys. The Cryptex all try to salvage what they can from his mind, but it's locked away, and they can't. None of his dynasty can betray him because of the command protocols. They just can't do it. But just because you can't betray him doesn't mean you can't work around that.
It's
So
it's not a betrayal if you just happen to take long breaks at work, long lunches.
yeah. And bear in mind that this guy, the Pharaon, he grieved about biotransference. He was dismayed at Sarek's decision to transform people. So basically, there's something called the Dark Pattern in the Jericho Reach, and apparently, everyone from the Necrons, Eldar, and Deathwatch trying to uncover what this constellation of planets are, but only really this guy knows what the true secrets are. And it's prophesized in the Daleth lexicon that the so-called crippled king, as he is known, may have walked occasionally during the Necron slumber. He might have had a bit of a sleepwalk now and then. And the Imperium has reports of blood harvesters with red scythes culling Imperial citizens for some sort of blood ritual.
Waking up at 3 a.m. for shredded cheese.
And it's like,
We've not all
that
been
sounds
there,
like
Colin. That is bad.
No, I
Chat-
feel you. I feel
Chat,
you, man. I
thank
feel
you,
you.
Eli. Thank you. Chat, back us
British-
up, please.
British can never get it. They
Thank
can never get the goldfish with cheese melted on it at 3 a.m.
They're not knowers.
but
Bro, it looks like he gets a white claw in the middle of the night.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
That's unrelated to cheese.
But either way, that's his whole thing with the Pharaoh. He's so powerful. He killed a Catan once. He's still asleep, but maybe he was chaos corrupted and occasionally woke up and had a bit of a slaughter. We don't know. But Ahotep, his blood relative, the Overlord Regent, he now is in charge in his place. He never anticipated to be in charge, but that didn't mean that he didn't scheme and plot throughout the whole of the War in Heaven to be like better than his peers, other than his pharaoh. So with treachery and political maneuvering, he achieved his rank. He capitalized on the war against the old ones. It's implied that maybe he held his men in reserve and let his rivals get killed by the Eldar and the Crocs and stuff while he grows in power. But either way, he's also the one who fueled Armontech's resentment of the Karnavok dynasty, which is the root cause of why he went kind of mad. Big schemy, big bad. Apparently, he woke up occasionally during the Great Sleep before everyone else and tinkered around with his peers to try and put spanners in the works. He doesn't like to get his hands dirty. He considers martial combat for lesser beings and prefers to just, he takes no pride in killing. He's like, let's just nuke them from orbit. That's the kind of guy he is. He spends the majority of his time attempting to revive his pharaoh, but because he can't betray him, that doesn't mean that he can tell his underling, Cryptic Ozcan, to maybe see if he can like find out how to get the command protocols from his brain, just in case, so that maybe he can deactivate them and maybe he can be in charge. Who knows? And in the last few millennia, the last millennia, he's been uncovering some of the tomb worlds within the dark pattern, and he's rising to power. Now, Ozcan is a cryptech of the Supercad dynasty. He's extremely loyal to Armontech. He was his main counsel. He was so well trusted that he was the only one who was allowed to criticize him rather than give him platitudes, which is what everyone else would be like, what a good idea, Chief. That's great. Yeah.
Massive cock,
good for
sir.
me.
Cocksmith.
You're looking quite well hung today, my lord.
Like a horse, sir. It drags along the floor, sir.
Said the other cryptex. But he was the only one who was allowed to naysay, and he was called the codifier.
Was he a horse?
It touches the
No.
bowl, sir, when you sit, sir.
Okay.
But either way, he was one of the few who was like similar to Oricon, the diviner. He saw that biotransference was a bad idea. He begged Armontech not to side with Sarek. So they had a council, they discussed it. But in the end, Armontech said, no, we have to do it. He's our king. Didn't go well. So Ozcan's soul, because of his knowledge of like the impending dread of what he was about to become, is kind of shattered, and he's kind of like a weird, like, he's not completely unscathed by biotransference, but he's also more independent than most. And in preparation for the Great Sleep, he basically, his warnings also contributed to Armontech's insanity, because then when he realized, oh god, you were right, and that made him even more insane. So he awoke to find his guy in charge asleep. He is doing everything he can to wake him up. He is working against Ahotech's commands in secret. He's all like, yeah, I'll get the command protocols, don't worry about it. But in secret, he's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to like delay this as much as I can. And he wants to put he's one of the he's similar to Sarek in that he wants the Necrons to have flesh and bone bodies again, and he wants to transfer his Pharaon's conscious into a human or Xenos host. And he's like, I've done a lot of experiments. I don't know if this works. And then one day he's like, what if we put him in a space marine body? That might work. And so his whole thing is like he's trying to capture a space marine, because if he can capture one alive, maybe he can transfer the Pharaon's mind into the space marine and his constitution will handle it. And then he will rise to power again. Kind of strange. Grand Vizier Emonok is the most senior member of the council. Bitter rival of Ahotech, thinks he's a dick. Both blood relatives again. He was disturbed to his core when he saw that Armontech wasn't waking up. He swears fealty to Ahotech, but in truth, he doesn't want to really serve him, but command protocols, he can't not. And even though he's called the Grand Vizier, he doesn't really have any real influence or power. He's been diminished ever since Ahotech took power. And so while he's in charge of the royal court and its chief administrator for the Hollow Sun, he's basically, theoretically, he could command all the lesser tomb worlds of the dynasty at a whim. But because no one knows where they are, that's a moot point. It's like, oh, cool. You're so powerful. Where's that tomb world you can control? So he's been making preparations for a coup where he is going to, he's basically trying to find all these lost tomb worlds, rally the men under his command as like a direct link with his protocols, so that one day he might, if he can't resurrect Armontech, he will rebel against Ahotech. So he's kind of cool. And he's leading a separatist movement. You got Tulek, the Destroyer Lord, another blood relative of Armontech and Ahotech and the other guy. He was once one of the best lieutenants of the dynasty's War of Heaven campaign, trusted implicitly by his Pharaon. He was known as the Blood Prince, and he hated Ahotech because he was a schemer and he never got into the thick of fighting. However, for some reason, he woke up like a lot earlier than the rest of the dynasty. I mean, a lot earlier. When he woke up, none of the automated stuff listened to him. His command programs were being refused. He was ignored by the spiders and the maintenance devices, and he roamed around the Crone world, which was completely slumbering, until he went insane, and then he transformed into a destroyer. And basically, for a while, he found a dolmen gate at the bottom of the Hollow Sun. He went and slaughtered a bunch of people, whether it's Xenos or Imperials. And then eventually the rest of the Supercar dynasty awoke, and they were like, "Oh no, oh no!" And they started getting killed by him too. He killed his own people. Then Ozcan the Codifier woke up and went, "Heal!" And then his command protocols stopped him from slaughtering the rest of his kin because he has that like hierarchy power. And so he pacified Fulek, and now he is completely under the whims of Ahotep, his bitter rival, and he only takes pleasure in killing things. So that's fun.
Nice. Damn, it's a pretty
And the last
sad
character,
story.
yeah, the Blood Prince is
Cool.
not a fun fella.
Bitch.
And the last one is Cryptek Rakos. He's a member of the Royal Court. He's the only one under the rank of Ozcan the Codifier. He's known as the Court Chronomancer. He's been like, he's in charge of looking after the history of his dynasty, but he's also studied every other species in the galaxy to try and understand how they can best conquer it. He's a master of arcane arts. He's known as the Harbinger of Eternity because he can manipulate these weird Necron engines in the heart of the Hollow Sun, which like fuel his power. And this guy could just like mold space-time at a whim. He's so powerful that like he can just be like, I'm teleporting across the segmentum of, like, I'm in Ultima Segmentum, now I'm in Solar. Like he can just teleport across the galaxy. And his shtick is that he's a historian. He's trying to do the best for his dynasty. He's not the highest ranking guy, but he knows what's what. And he also has divined the future of many calamities. This guy alone has prevented the extinction of the galaxy as we know it a few times because he's seen, oh, that's like a calamity that's going to kill everything. And then the Necron stopped it from happening because of his advisements. And he kind of plays up his power. A bit of that is like, yes, I did help, but I wasn't like, I didn't do it myself, but he doesn't tell people that because it's like, I'm not going to tell people that I'm this omnipotent guy that knows everything and thwarts extinction across the galaxy. Why would I tell people that? That's stupid.
I'm gonna have to do more work.
If someone says, if you're a god, you say yes, Ghostbusters. And yeah, but he has this theory that there's a being known as the Stranger that will one day destroy the entire galaxy if it's not rooted out and destroyed. And so there is a branch of the Death Watch called the Dead Cell. They're keeping an eye on Rakos, but they're like, we're not stupid. Let's not like interfere with his plans because he obviously knows what he's doing. And that's kind of like the last guy of this weird, quirky Necron dynasty that's like got a lot of cool concepts. But just remember, we will never see any of this ever again because this was published like 15, 20 years ago.
It's so
it's dead in the
classic.
water.
It's such classic GW to have like the most OP, important, setting-changing characters in random like RPG books and Imperial armor books. It's very classic.
I did say, I think hopefully though, for people listening along, they have discovered some, maybe definitely with that last bit, some cool bits of Necron lore they might not have known before. I don't think I even heard of that.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet. Now. Sit down.
There's no way.
There's no freedom.
I'll set the time limit to 3.5 hours, but I'll set it for 3 hours just because Hal's getting antsy. Hal's getting fidgety.
I'm just making sure the episode's not too long for people, that's all.
Bro is twitching.
That's the whole point.
Oh, bro.
Anyways, I'm gonna let me quickly go through some more things. I'll be fast. Let's talk about their society a little bit because there's cool little things.
No, go ahead, man.
All right. As I said before, Red has a theory on this. He's not in the chat. Very sad. Where's Red? Where's DJ Beast? Get them in the chat. But humans, it is said that the humans of our time can be compared to the Necron tier of old in their own primitive way. As we said before, they sacrificed the sun to appease spirits that haunted it. What I was saying before about those Crimson guys, they're actually called, oh my gosh, it was right here, Red Marshals. It was called Red Marshals. and they conducted the solar harvest we were talking about. The Necron tier gave little heed and importance to beauty, but they never gained much skill in music. Necron tier were, in fact, Necron tier were not great at music. The Necrons themselves are utterly terrible at music. There's a part where Oltix walks in on Daenerys, trying to like play a song, and he's like, "This is the worst thing I've ever heard." And Daenerys is like, "I've been working on this for like 1,000 years," and yeah,
Not making it out the hood with this one.
Essentially, like, what is the song? And all you hear is just, "It's Friday, Friday." You're like,
It
no.
perhaps is like
ass.
it's perhaps like a testament to their lack of souls, that they're
Lack
unable
of
to
creativity.
make real art, real music. I think music is perhaps one of the greatest signifiers of sentience and a soul. Anyways, all art beyond the depiction of majesty had vanished since biotransference and was reduced to grim parody. Heka, some stuff about Heka. When something is written in Hekatic cant, it is made to be universally true. So if nobody is written upon a noble statue, then they no longer exist. As I said before, the measuring cubits in Ket, they write in glyphs and Hekatic arrays. They sacrificed all for lasting legacy in the stones, the tombs, the statues. Necron stone is sacred. Kemet, sacred ground. Touching organic viscera is extremely taboo, and if done on accident, it would result in the execution of the servant who was responsible and a long process of cleansing rites. Even in the time of flesh, defecation, as we said before, was a point of contempt for Necrontyr society, and they distanced themselves with it as much as possible, reviling the necessary act. Necrons believe in a machine spirit. Many Necrons hate the void of space, and even their predecessors despise the sea, calling the space Uath, or the Sea of Stars. A lord cannot be seen to run, which is actually similar to like ancient Hebrew stuff. A man was not to run, and then Jesus ran. Is all wacky. Anyways, there's the story of the wayward seal bearer, welcomed with open arms. I think it's similar to the prodigal son story. There's a process called being extorsted. Is that really what it says? I'm not buying that, but you're stripped of all color. It's what happens to Oltix and the Twice-Egg King, and down to your rough black necrodermis. Teleporting translation sinks you into the interstices. Interstitial commands is the way of commanding troops, so it is likely the same network as the interstices. Vitriform is a neat little thing. It's glass-like, as their ancestors had been sand-born commoners to this specific place, which I guess doesn't say here. The Vitrians, I think, is what they are. The Vitrians created Vitriform, which is glass-like, translates to glass-like, as their ancestors had been sand-born commoners who were grudgingly given titled status in recognition of their feats. Most were soldiers who won the right to legacy through great service. Slag Glass Lords is part of these people. They're the most despised of all nobles.
Cool as hell.
Yeah. Ancestors were shrewd merchants of thousands of generations of wealth. It was all spent on a stake in rare alloys that went to the Ithacan shipyards. The crown had permitted them a minor title. They then squandered much of their wealth living lives of debauchery. Okay, it's something called the Tale of the Shipwrecked Vargard. A Vargard is speaking to his Nemesaur as his lord had traveled to face the Pharaon after a disastrous battle. The Nemesaur knew he walked to his death and had no wish for entertainment, but had indulged his servant anyways. The Vargard provided a long account of personal woes, which began with the destruction of his vessel as he had sailed across the barren Ueth. He then spoke of being stranded on an island, riddles, treasure, and monsters were spoke of, and many more mythological anecdotes. There's a lot of wacky stories like that. The Vargard finishes by showing his master all the wealth he had brought back. Even amidst the many disasters and hardships, his cunning and self-control had seen him become richer than he was when he left. If one so lowly as him could turn fate around, then surely his great and powerful Nemesaur could avert his fate. The mouth of a Necrontyr saves him, claims the Vargard in encouragement. The Nemesaur responds, "Do not speak so arrogantly, my friend. Why give water to a beast at dawn before its slaughter at the rising of the sun? There is no value in offering hope to those resigned to doom. If the Nemesaur had hoped for clemency, he should have not failed in battle." I guess is what the moral of the story is. Some of them made a lot of sense, but that's just the words from the book. A Nemesaur's staff, speaking of Nemesaurs, an Nemesaur's staff is a crucial signifier of rank. It is engraved with symbolic designs and glyphic records of the bearer's standing. Usually, it is a matter of grievous insult for a noble to commission a staff too similar to any other. Xandrak and his buddy have a similar staff because they're friends, or they were friends. The Necrons speak in hand gestures and stances. A hand indicates a smile, while the right begins the pose of greeting, for example. Distance to someone indicates status, hierarchy, and respect. To stand close to someone is a sign of affection, and someone lower on the totem pole could not stand near someone higher on the totem pole. That'd be very bad, very disrespectful. All right, here's an example of a high cryptex duty. It was sacred duty, the charge, the purpose of a high cryptex. While the lesser minds, creatures of a tomb world awake, it is the cryptex duty to ensure the dynast was wreathed. The dynast, what is this saying? I'm trying to summarize these notes, but not working very well. They're in the age and woken comfort. Okay. The high cryptech wakes up the dynast, make sure they're comfortable and safe. No one has the authority. No one has authority above Triac Praetorians. This is a random thing. Judgment cannot be made upon them, and one cannot take their rod of covenants because they are, of course, the servants of the silent king, Xeric himself. They are the highest authority. Lower level of cryptech is an apprentech. Speaking the true names of the Catan was taboo until they broke them into shards. His, what the heck? Hisia, yeah. What's Cien?
Do you want to
It's a word.
send it in the
It's a
chat?
word.
Want to see if we can
Bro
work
is having
through
another
this?
stroke.
It's a word. His Ignala
What did you
was a
call me?
Catan.
Yeah, I got nothing, dog.
That was a Catan, whatever.
It's in
And
Discord.
other Catans supposedly existed, but have been lost throughout the years. I've said this before in the quiz. Catsland, Overtland, and Amig are the first three numbers of the Necron counting system. They're also the names of the Triac Praetorians that follow around Enric the Traveler and keep an eye on him. The Necron mindset is better the commoners lose their identity than a cryptech / noble, so don't feel so bad for those warriors. Nobles can display the relays that would convey certain emotions, yada yada. Okay. There's Necron AI leaders. That's a little thing for people who die, important individuals who died before biotransference. Their minds were kind of made into these AI things that are kind of awkward versions of Necrons, but they still have this similar personalities and ideas of those people way back in the day. It's just they're clumsy, they're awkward, they lack the poise of a true Necron. They have a harder time with postures and poses and hand gestures and stuff. See anything cool? Royal Wardens stop a traditional 3 paces behind their overlord. Yigdranya was once the patron deity of Borsis. The Catan was depicted in the. Okay, sorry, that's just stuff in the book. That's a Catan, though, I guess. That's enough of that, I guess. They have codes of conduct of war and honor. I guess I never actually mentioned that. The Necrons have like a really big book of codes that they find really important. At least most of them do. These are codes of honor and general ways of how you're supposed to conduct warfare and stuff. It's very important. They were very honorable people back in the day, and a lot of their characters still go by these codes. Like these codes say things like not to use death marks and how you're always supposed to offer surrender to an opponent. You're supposed to capture a general and give them dinner and take care of them.
Zandrek.
Yeah, Xandrak follows these codes very much so. Enric here a little bit, but not always. Yeah, I don't know. Here's some sayings, I guess. Robbing Xeric to pay Orkin is a saying, which means giving up something to gain little. They also, but the way they swear is like they say like Xeric's teeth or Xeric's bones or Xeric's anything, basically, which is a fun little thing. Dolem Gates. I said I would talk more about Dolem Gates, so I'll talk a little more about Dolem Gates. They're very rare. They're basically the greatest jewel, the greatest creations ever of the dynasties. As I said, the knowledge was given by Niadrazatha for nothing in return but pain and suffering. No one awake, no cryptech awake currently seems to know how to make one. But there may be cryptechs that are still sleeping that know how to make Dolem Gates, which would be a big deal if they did. Even the locations of these things is worth great fortunes. The technology is fickle, and it can be suspicious amogus to use sometimes, and you can get stuck in the webway. as the webway seems to be sentient or at least capable of responding to breaches. Dolem gates make such breaches, and so the webway reacts to stem the entrance and seal the wound. Any force that enters must swiftly close it or move quickly to a depth that cannot be severed. Entire legions have been lost in the early days of the War in Heaven and are presumably still active.
How is it they're able to do that? Because surely it requires a psychic touch.
I don't know. That's why it's so
Mysterious.
I don't know. Let's see what this is. Maybe this will. Such technology was fickle in its prime. After all this time, to trust that it would still function is madness. There too lurked tricks and turns not anticipated by the naive Necrontier, like the biotransference that had ensured their unending half-life. The Dolmen Gates offered the unexpected and the unwelcome. They were access points to the webway, a means of traveling across vast distances at great speeds and without touching reality. But to move so close to the nightmare dimensions of the other realm to tempt the beings that dwelled therein was madness. Okay, so yeah, we don't know how it works. I don't think anyone knows how it works. That's kind of the point. They just know how to turn them on.
It's Todd Howard. It just works.
Yeah.
It just works. Fallout
Mhm.
76, 16 times the detail.
Almost
How
done.
is it?
Almost
How is
done.
it? That company makes games that look like they were made 10 years before.
And so, like, the
Because
original,
their engine's 20 years ago.
the original 76 had a weight class on the bottle caps, and I just remember that someone sent Todd Howard a box full of bottle caps, and it just had a note that says, "Weigh these."
Was it that or was it
Oh.
Bobby? I don't. It was one of those.
It was Bobby Pins or bottle caps. But it's just like, weigh these.
Weigh
But,
this.
Yep.
These are not a tenth of a pound.
Nope.
All right. Talk about a little bit about Tomb Worlds, just a little bit. As I said before, they're watched over by an autonomous spirit. They're set up by cryptex, but even the architects of these tomb worlds were unable to imagine their sorceries might be undone by the brute attrition of time itself. So there are many issues. Sometimes, not all the time, but they did place the directive to repel any invaders for a tomb world, and this does go on to enemy Necrons. The idea of like intrigue and deception was so inlaid in the Necron tier and the Necron people that even a tomb world can sometimes repel other Necron forces. So if you're there and you're not allowed to be there, the Canoptics and stuff will attack you even if you're a Necron, and it will also block your reanimation protocol codes. So if you die there, if you die in the game, you die in real life if that happens, which is an issue. And the spookiest kind of Necron is a severed Necron from a severed world. These worlds, on these worlds, the nobles don't wake up, and the tomb world takes control of these all of the Necrons, of the world itself. And it sees even other Necrons, even friendly other Necrons, as enemies, and it kind of makes like zombie puppet Necrons and controls them, which is neat. Oh, Canoptic spiders are a big thing. They have pre-programmed curiosity protocols. They're fun little guys. They help wake up and maintain the tomb world along with the rest of the Canoptics. Canoptics can maybe be affected by the Flare Curse. It's hard to say. Advanced autonomous spirits are not to be installed within Canoptics. There's something called cleaning scarabs. Necrons fighting Necrons is inconceivable to most Canoptic programming. That's a thing, in one book at least. There's Tomb Sentinel and Tomb Stalkers. Those are the centipede things. Some of them can go through walls and they have anti-gravitic motors. They're pretty cool. Scarabs can fuse together to make a pistol, which would imply that they can transform into other things. Canoptic scarabs will also eat anything they want and make it into whatever they want. So you could get eaten by a Necron scarab and turn into a piece of the Necron obelisk, which is kind of fun. Here's some miscellaneous facts to close us out, I guess. There will never be Necron children, what I said before. Something called the sixth evocation: give unto him sand for the soldiers, soil for the workers, and rock for the lords. Obsession distracts from the curse, the Flare Curse. It's good to talk to your legions, even if they can't comprehend it. Speaking keeps one from insanity, and one of the greatest killers is loneliness. Many commanders stopped talking as there was no need. Talking through ideas also helps one realize new paths. MWT, M apostrophe WT, Muit, something like that, is what the Necrons call the Ghoul Stars, which we mentioned before. And the Flare Curse seems to be particularly active in the ghoul stars. Kemet, which I said earlier, is a root word for sacred ground. Or you can the name of the Traic Praetorian in the new book is named Kemet with an H. Through some arcane science, the Necrons have galactic maps that change and react with what happens in the galaxy. Most people know what the Celestial Orrery is. There's a million YouTube shorts about it, whatever. Yeah, is there anything else that I really need to talk about? Doom scythes go 3 times the speed of sound. I don't know if that's actually fast. Maybe it's fast for like
It's reasonably
just flying
fast.
around, doing whatever you want.
That's pretty good.
Seraptic heavy constructs are based off the dread monsters of Necron 2 myth. Lichguard are too proud to use their blades on unworthy foes and will just beat things up. Like when Vargard Oberon leads his Lichguard against the Severed World, they just beat the Severed Necrons up because they're not worthy of using weapons against them. Destroyers spew catechisms of hate from their mouth speakers. That's cool. Warriors get controlled and act by means of synaptic relay processes. There's a lot of Praetorian lore. We don't have to talk about that. Hal, do you want to just give us a really brief breakdown of Zarek, the Silent King, of what he's been up to lately? Just brief.
Yeah, because Zarek has
He's
been
cranking his hog. And
Yes.
well,
60 million years of cranking your hog.
As much as we will probably tackle him in a character episode, because again he deserves like quite a bit more. But very briefly, there's a whole like prior Nexus thing that's been going on, and as the different Necron dynasties have awoken, obviously Imhotep's kind of come out as the strongest. The Imperium has also been battling up to the point of what is the Great Rift, and then this specific race for whatever. There's arms race in the prior Nexus for Blackstone, which the Necrons have often used in their pylons and other stuff. The Silent King is not so silent anymore. He has been back in the universe, in our galaxy at least, for quite a few hundred years, a few centuries at this point, but he's let himself be known now. And he's briefly had a little bout with the Imperium during the Indomitus Crusade, where he has I don't want to spoil all of it because it's actually quite cool, but some of its own stuff. But essentially, he's almost fought Gilliman one-on-one, but Gilliman got saved from that. But Gilliman was terrified. He's like, "Oh my god, what am I about to battle?" Because this thing was, he couldn't fathom the scale of the Necron, basically power that could be arrayed against them, despite him wielding the Indomitus fleet. But yeah, Prior Nexus is still going on, and there's a few players in the game, and the Silent King is definitely one of them. And he needs to get Imhotep either in line, or he needs to show him, like, maybe, yes, I am worthy of the rule.
Because I think the main division between Sarek and Imhotep is that Sarek is completely devoted to the idea that he'll return them to flesh and blood, whereas Imhotep's like, no, we just need to unite the species and make do of what we have. Like the biggest enemy of Sarek is the Tyranids, because if the Tyranids eat everything, no flesh to make new bodies with. Whereas Imhotep is like, we need to crush the Imperium and chaos and bring order to the galaxy.
Well, also, he thinks Zarek's time is over. There's no need to have the old guard take, and that's why there'll be civil war.
Wasn't even like ambitious until he was awakened, and then it was like, oh, my dynasty is in like turmoil, and he killed all the people in charge. It was like, right, I'm a respected general. Do as I say, because I know what I'm doing. But, okay.
Yeah, he thinks Zarek is just the failure of the past, which I guess he kind of is in some sense, and then he doesn't think he's worthy to lead them anymore. So we'll see how that goes down. Either he convinces him, or they battle it out.
I think the more like, I guess, important, the appearance of Zarek is first kind of seen by the Blood Angels. It's fairly important. He literally says, he speaks to Dante, which is kind of cray-cray.
Which is that he can't not speak. He just doesn't. He usually speaks through proxies as a Silent King.
But like he basically, Zarek flew around, cranked his hog for 65 million years. He saw the Tyranids, decided that they're the biggest threat to the galaxy. He teams up with the Blood Angels for a little bit, and he appears with the face of Sanguinius and Tycho Dante and some other random guy. I don't know if he's an important character. The third company guy talks to him, and he says to Dante, "They are the rising storm, and you must become the shield." And then he kind of tricks Dante and the Blood Angels into sacrificing most of their forces and stuff. Well, the Necrons help a little bit to fight these Tyranids, but he takes out both of them with one stone. So
takes
there.
advantage of them. But to be fair,
Yeah.
the Imperium would have lost anyway.
Yeah.
So we'd have to fight the Necrons and the Tyranids.
There's implications that he might have met Sanguinius, or he was going to talk to Sanguinius and then didn't get to. He seems to think like Sanguinius would have been a good emperor, and that they could have had an alliance, or they even were going to. This is all in one short
being
story.
Manipulative.
So
who knows? He might be manipulating. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like the stuff about the alliance, like a Triarch Praetorian says it to Anrikir the Traveler, so it's probably true. It'd be a random thing to lie about to Anrikir. But speaking of who, I'll list off the characters like really fast. We have Imhotep the Stormlord, the best general in Warhammer 40k, undeniably. He's literally the most unbelievable genius. He's 1 bajillion supercomputers in a guy's brain, conducting 20 campaigns all at the same time while also leading from the front lines. He's prideful. His thing is that he'll defeat a character instead of killing them. He'll just take his hand to make fun of them. Like he takes Helbrecht's hand, he takes Eldoras Stormbane's hand. He's the taker of 1 trillion hands, that's his name, and master of 300,000 worlds. He made the old ones scared. The old ones were scared of him because he was such a brutal, like, ingenious commander. I've said it before, gone like the Kubu is an idiom that the Necrons used because Imhotep in the Time of Flesh absolutely eradicated the Kubu, which were a rebellious dynasty. We have Anrikir the Traveler. He's a kind of a pilgrim trying to unite the dynasties. He is probably the most ambitious Necron and trying the hardest to unite all the dynasties. He gave up control of his crown world, and he takes his period and his Eternals with him. He can cast his mind and uses Heka to take control of machines. We have Xandric and Oberon. Xandric's the old wily guy who's really nice and thinks he's still a living being, and everyone's still flesh and blood, but it's also implied that he actually knows that they're all Necrons and he's just pretending and having a good time. Fargard Oberon is his bodyguard, probably one of the best duelists in the galaxy. Pretty cool. Illuminor Xeris is the classic mad scientist TM of the Necrons. He's doing some Sussus and Mogus experiments, and he's kind of insane. If you get captured by him, it's tough times for you. Probably, potentially more crazy than Fabius Bile, but a little bit more of a direction. Maybe, I don't know. Orc and the Diviner is the master chronomancer. He can literally go back in time and fast forward time and do all this crazy stuff and see in the future. Therese the Infinite is the goofy guy who has the museum with all the relics and is trying to gather all of history together just in case the galaxy explodes and he needs to restart and whatever. Yeah, that's Ultix. I was going to have Annie talk about Ultix, but I guess we don't have to. He's the twice dead king guy. He became the Bone King of Drezak. Spoiler, sorry. But also the Bone King is kind of hard to tell what it really
Slayer
is.
Lord kind of guy.
Yeah. Are there any more characters that I missed over? Camotep the Crooked is Anarchy's Cryptek, and he's in a kill team. That's a thing. Yeah. Jared Zajaris is a cool character. He's a really nice guy.
There's that new character, which is the new
He's in
Lord.
Twice Dead King. He's dead.
Yeah.
Spoilers, sorry. Yeah. I guess we can leave it off there.
We're gonna save some for another episode, otherwise we won't get to talk about Necrons again. So that's what I meant.
We'll do a 3-hour Necron Lords episode maybe. Although it probably would be better just to split the characters off into their own separate episodes. I hope you guys liked this Necron episode. I left out some stuff. I have more to talk about sometime in the future.
3 hour longs. I left out some stuff.
I also have more books to read and an Imperial Armor book to read. So there's still
Bro
many things to discuss.
I think Bro is unwell. He made 44 pages.
This was like 10 of the pages, I think, to be honest.
He just likes Necrons. Don't bully Eli.
But we do have we do have a question of the week, though, don't we, Colin, for the previous week?
It's amazing how that's do we?
Do we?
Previous weeks, yeah. No, I had
previous.
Those.
Previous, yeah.
I would say I thought I was in charge of getting the old ones, which I did grab. So in that case, yes, I do have those. Pardon me. My bad. It was like, what are I've reread the first one. I'm sorry. It was what's something horrifying in Warhammer, right? What are you afraid of? Hashtag fear. Cursive S. Hashtag fear. The moment Hal starts planning his pre-stream gooning time frames appropriately, I know shit's about to hit the fan if we reach that point.
I'm never late though. I'm usually never late.
Hal is usually on time.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's never late.
I think this
He's the gooner.
this was like today was one of 2 times he was like
Because
the
there's a
last
fire
person
engine
in.
outside my house.
Yeah, and even then he was like 2 seconds behind me.
What Hal means to say is he set a fire across the way from his house, and then the fire brigade had to come and sort it out.
Fire brigade.
Ugh.
Is that what you guys call your firefighters?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard both. That was a little goofy though.
It's been older than your country though, so it's fine.
Okay.
What?
It's fine. I'm sure it's been around long time, so it's all good.
Cope and seethe. Cope and seethe.
Country the size of our state says what?
Naira.
Naira 9855. Fear living in 40K and eating the same fucking meal every time for my entire life. I'm gonna be
Don't
out
do that already. Bro could not be a gym bro. What the heck? I eat like a dog, man.
I'm gonna be honest. I think going off that, there's a lot more misery in 40K than people think about. Even just beyond, there's a gene stealer outside my house. I mean, oh boy, my fallen dead neighbors turned into food for the 10th time this week.
Or even you said gene stealers. I've just done my video on gene stealer cults. There's one called the wormlings, and they just eat bugs.
I love
this particular type of bug.
They have a
and it's
big
like
they have big grubs in a pit that they throw people into.
Yeah, they eat the bugs from a cemetery world, a mortuary world. So they
Ugh.
eat bugs from dead people, and they're like, it makes us strong. And I'm like, it probably
No,
tastes
it
like
doesn't.
cack.
And then the last one, Donkey Man USA. Hashtag fear, being one of the few servitors that regains sapience due to malfunction. I have no mouth, but I must scream. Yeah, no, that'd be
I
hell.
must stream.
I have no soul, and I must stream. It's been hit
Yep.
back in the mines. Fucking idiot.
Oh, bruh. And we have another question of the week, don't we? What was the one we chose this week?
It might have been
I believe it
related. Was it?
I thought we were going to do hashtag biotransference. What would you look forward to?
Oh, yeah.
There's not a
from
lot
your
to
living
look
metal
forward
body.
to.
Yeah, what are you looking forward
being
to
really
not
strong and
having?
fast is cool. Oh, when Necrons sit down, by the way, they don't have to use chairs. They just bend their legs.
Yeah, they do.
They pretend to
they
sit,
just kinda
basically.
squat.
And time is a weird concept to them. Things will like, if you're late to a meeting, you might be like 50 years late, and that's just like whatever.
They just accept that.
Yeah,
Just
like
sit there,
thousands of years go by and like no one cares. Trace the Infinite was one of the first guys to wake up after the Great Sleep. Not the first, but one of the first sleep.
He woke up. I know there was a council
Might
in
have been the
place
first
where it was like if anyone else woke up early, that the council existed to keep them in line from stabbing all their rivals.
Yeah,
I just like the idea is like for all their power and manipulation of time space, they couldn't invent one of those little egg stopwatch things that you guys or like a stopwatch.
I believe Anarkir also woke up.
Ironic.
Early. I don't know, there's a few people who woke up early.
And it's where like Sarek never went to sleep. He just went out and ventured with like
him and the
with a
Trade
kill team.
Praetorians did not go to sleep.
Yeah, and then they went, "What's that? Gribblies, gribbly wibblies! Get back to the homeland."
Cool.
Yeah, that was fun. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one.
Pray for Eli.
Oh man, pray for Pancreas has tumor, bro. Pray for him.
Yeah. Much love, sending love, boy.
Man,
God bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope you enjoyed that episode. This will be up a little bit later if you're watching live, so bear that in mind. But we're trying something new with the channel, and
Braden gets to edit this whole 3-hour video.
That's what I was kind of leaning towards.
I told you all it would be long. I told you it'd be long. It could have been a lot longer. Let it be known.
It will be next time as well. Again, we'll see see you guys all in the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Again, if you want to watch the live streams that are unedited, do join the Discord because the links will always be there.
Mhm.
So that's how you can still see our lovely faces in the dono stuff. And we'll catch you guys all in the
Mhm.
next one. Peace.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Glory to the
Bye.
immortal empire, the rightful ruler.